Testing, testing. All right. That's good. Where's our guest mic? All right, cool. So,
Sure, let's do it.
okay. Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Enash Brodsky.
I'm Steven Zuber.
And today we have a live in-studio guest audience. Say hi, guys. Awesome.
Thousands.
Yes. So many that we couldn't get them all on the microphone. Thank you guys for showing up. This is delightful. Why are we here today, Steven? I have my own story. Do you have a thing that you want to say?
Why I'm here at Lighthaven today?
Yeah.
You lived here, and it was a good excuse to come visit. I've been wanting to give it a shot, and I was between jobs. Actually, when I booked it, I didn't have one, and when between booking it and arriving, I signed a new job, so that was exciting. But I start that on Monday when I get back. So
That is pretty damn cool.
yeah.
And okay, never mind. I am acutely aware that we are live right now, so the things that I would normally say and then be like, hey, should we just cut this out in post? I can't do that.
There's a record.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not live, but yeah, we're not going to fuck with this afterwards. So we will be a little more circumspect in what we are saying here today. I am here because the reason I'm recording right now is because, yeah, I am staying here. I've been staying here for a little over a month, and this place is amazing. I think briefly, shall we talk about what Lighthaven is for our uninitiated listeners?
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be slightly boring for you guys here in the room since you all know what Lighthaven is. But
I've been here for a day and a half, and I'm still not quite sure. So
that's good, because to be quite honest, I guess I'm not 100% sure either. Is anyone else slightly warm in here, by the way, or is it just me?
just you.
It's slightly? Okay. We could maybe crack the door if you don't mind. A little bit airflow. I could possibly open that one afterwards too. So Lighthaven, it is, I think I just call it like a campus, right? It's a number of buildings around a lot of common spaces where people can work together, and they mainly use it as a event space for various unconferences. The Manifest was here that the Manifold Markets people run. Less Online was here. There's been a number of events held here, and they have some rooms that people can stay in while they're here as well. It used to be an inn, the Rose Garden Inn. But right now they are running an Eternal September event, which started in September. You will notice that it is currently November, but that is why the September is eternal. They do not lie about that part. And during Eternal September, everyone can just come here, book a room for a while, and stay. And I really love it because this is kind of the place where a lot of rationalists come to hang out. I mean, not every day, obviously, but throughout the week. Like, if you want to just meet really cool people like us that have interesting ideas and will ask you questions about 10-finger demons and totally fuck up your psyche, this is the place to go.
I'll let you finish, but I want to circle back to the 10-finger demon thing.
Oh, okay. So during these Eternal September, the various little things happen. People put on workshops. I know Ricky just had a workshop about, was anyone here for Ricky's workshop? Lasted a few days?
No one listening was.
Okay, great. But it was about trading and quant stuff, because was a quant at Jane Street.
You're going to have to say what both of those things are.
Okay. Trading stocks and making decisions having to do with money and uncertainty.
Okay, I got that. Quant at what?
Jane Street? Oh, it's a place that does a lot of stock trades over at Wall Street.
And a quant is a trader?
A quant is someone who uses mathematical methods to analyze what is happening at the stock market and do things like arbitrage.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if these were like insular nerd words, or if they were just, if anyone who knew anything about stock trading would know these. So
quickly, because this is off the top of my head, does anyone have a better explanation of what quants and Jane Street is? Okay, great.
Then that's good enough.
Yeah. But there is going to be a unconference between like getting Doomers and EACs together to see if they can iron out some differences maybe later on.
You said an unconference?
Uh-huh.
Do they just call it that just to be different? Because it sounds like a conference.
An unconference is where the people themselves book rooms and put on little presentations. And that's very similar to what we're doing right now, where we just like, hey, this room's going to be open these hours. Let's put on a podcast recording.
Oh, and a conference, I guess, is where they're all booked in advance, and you know days ahead, this will be the 2 hours to do this or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the unconference, specifically, there's organizers that invite people and put on all the programming. when an unconference is just like people show up and book rooms and put on their own things for each other. It's much more anarchistic, I guess. David would be proud.
Yes.
Yeah. But this is much smaller scale. We're going to have a love symposium this coming weekend. We have the two of the guys running it here in the room, so I'm sure they will talk about that later. And Lighthaven itself is just a gorgeous place, in my opinion, to stay and to be immersed in other rationalists. And I've really kind of fallen in love with this place. A few people have called it Rationalist Mecca, and I think it's a great place to come and visit sometime. And I figured, what the hell, as long as I'm here, let's have a little podcast recording and talk to some of the people here and see what they're doing here.
Yeah.
Cool. You were going to loop back to something.
Yeah. So I listened to that episode, and I think I kind of just object to the thought experiment. Like, it's one of those things, like, so my answer would be, yeah, take all my hands because I don't really care. Like,
hold on. There's a possibility that the guy who actually asked me that question might show up later on. And if he does, you can see this directly in front of him.
Yeah, but if he comes back, I'll mention it to him. I'll just give the quick summary then, which is, I think any of those kind of thought experiments where it essentially reduces down to, like, would you kill yourself for the betterment of mankind to X extent?
Mm-hmm.
Those aren't real cases. And so I think, I like intuition pumps, I like good thought experiments, but I wouldn't be too hard on yourself for kind of refusing to engage it as a very serious proposition.
Right.
Like, if you knew this was happening, I think it would be different, right? But it's like, for the sake, imagine a perfectly spherical Hitler in a vacuum. Like, when it gets to be that absurd, then I don't really, I don't know, burn too much fuel feeling bad about my answers to stuff. So that was my quick sense. If the guy who pitched the question comes in and wants to talk more about it, we can circle back later.
Cool. What would you guess that Lighthaven is if you were asked right now on the sofa after having been here for less than 24 hours?
Well, you just gave me a good explanation, but it's a hodgepodge of differently styled buildings, all within kind of fenced off area. I have no idea where we are in relation to anything else in Berkeley. I've never been to the Bay Area before, so I know San Francisco is... Actually, I don't know which way it is. I think that way...
The people listening can totally see you pointing too.
West.
Okay.
Isn't it? No.
Our audience is pointing the opposite direction that Stephen was pointing.
No, but when we were driving here, we were driving in the evening towards the... away from the sunset. So we would have been driving west.
Berkeley campus, SM.
Also, all right, you guys are the pros.
If you're driving away from the sunset in the evening, you are driving east because the sunset's in the west.
Shit, you're right. Yeah, I got turned around. Okay, in my defense, I didn't know there'd be mountains here. And in my entire life, mountains have been to the west.
Right.
And it's been throwing me off since I landed. So.
Also, in your defense, you had like 3 hours of sleep last night.
And the night before.
Yeah. So.
No, wait, last night I did okay. The 2 previous nights where I was a wreck. So.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But you could have been facing in any direction yesterday and you wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Cool. Real quick, since this is going to be like an open mic type thing where anyone can walk up and sit right there and talk to us about stuff or ask us questions, is there anyone here in the audience, I'm assuming at least 2 people are going to raise their hand, who wants to talk about anything they're doing here or ask us questions? 1, 2, possibly 3? Okay, cool. Is there anything we want to jump on before we actually just ask people up? Because I have no idea how long those talks will take and I want to get them out of the way first and we can talk about other based in conspiracy podcast stuff afterwards.
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, totally. Let's do the talk with as many people as we can for as long as we can, and then we've got backup ideas if that runs dry. So.
Okay, cool. Well, who would like to come up first? All right, come.
So you'll want to talk into the side with the blue on it.
Yeah. The pickups are actually in the front, facing towards where the blue is, and not in the top. So you want to talk into the forward of it.
Okay, so like this is a.
Oh, that's perfect.
Is it
Beautiful.
good?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's really good. This is Andrew Cutler.
Maybe turn it down a smidge.
Turn it down a smidge. All right. Welcome onto the show, Andrew. For people who were listening to the podcast last year, I think it was, maybe early this year, we talked about your snake theory of consciousness, which I personally really love. And then we had you on for the follow-up episode soon after that to talk about it all. I was wondering if there are any updates to all that.
There are updates. So first, like items of business, like we could probably talk about this for a long time.
Okay.
But like this is a live thing, so I don't want to dominate the time. So
Okay. All right. Then maybe I'll have you on to talk about it again later.
Yeah, and also there's an event in SF that's Matt and I will go to in like 40 minutes.
Oh,
so that's
okay,
that is
okay.
also a hard stop.
Get
for
your shit
us.
out of here fast then.
Yeah.
Cool. What is the event in SF?
It's Matt. What's it called?
So for people who couldn't hear that, that there is an AGI house where someone is running every week reading sessions where he talks about things. They talk about things that they've read together. Yeah, and this is one of the fascinating things about the Bay Area. There are a number of group houses. Like, the people don't just live together because it's too goddamn expensive to have your own place, although they do that too. There are literally group houses where a bunch of people working on the same stuff will live together so they can all work on it together. And like, the houses are just dedicated to this particular project, and it is the coolest goddamn thing in the world. I don't know why the rest of the world isn't doing this.
I part of me admires that. The other part of me is just repelled by the non-existent work-life balance in that circumstance, right?
Well, I mean, but if your life is your work, then that is the perfect balance.
That's right, but
I think that's
for
what
the
to
rest
be repelled by.
for the rest of us, even if I really like my job and care about it, that seems like a lot of commitment. There's the pressure, you want to take the afternoon off and relax, and everyone else is working hard, and all you want to do is play video games. Well, now you're peer pressured by everyone that you live with.
I think you can still do that. I think like in the past, it used to be the fact, like, if you were John Smith, you were literally the smith. You did all the smithing. That was your life, and you worked when you wanted to. You didn't have the 9 to 5, and your entire family like supported you. The cobbler family, like, sure, there was the main head guy, the head of the house or whatever, that was the big cobbler, but like, his kids worked at shaping leather, and his wife supported him and all that, and maybe she did the finances. Like, everyone's life was just their work and the rest of their life kind of mixed up together. And I sort of hate that we have this little hole now that we go to for 8 hours a day to do our work, and then it's so divorced from the rest of our lives.
I like having the distinction. You get to set your work down and then go live your actual life.
Terrible.
But if you really like what you're doing, and then you just, there's nothing stopping people from working longer.
One of the beautiful, okay, so I'm going to talk about Lighthaven again and how much I love it. One of the great things here is that, like, I just go to the common areas and I bring my laptop and I will sit and like type, work on podcast stuff or do some writing, and other people will wander by and I'll set that down. I'll chat with the people, and then I'll go back to what I'm doing. And it's very much the disappearance of the work-life balance again, but in a great way. And a lot of times, due to what I'm doing, I can just work on stuff while other people are around me chatting on other things. And having that life around you while you're working is so much better, in my opinion, than being just in an office with cubicle walls and everything is silent and everyone's tapping away. And this way it feels more like you're alive and living in life. And if it's slightly less efficient because there's some distraction happening, that's fine. That's how life is supposed to be. Not everything has to be the maximally cranked up efficiency.
I think that's one of the reasons why you like. Sorry, Andrew. Just one thing is that you like the work-life mesh more, because work for you was the shitty little tiny cubicle. I've never had a cubicle, so when I did go to the office, it was an open office kind of vibe, and I didn't really like that either. But now I've been work from home fully for years. So if I couldn't just leave my work when I closed my computer and left my office, that would just be a drag for me. But yeah, for you, it's like, I don't want to have to go to this hellhole for 8 hours a day and spend an hour and a half getting to and from. So I follow you. All right, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, being a lighthouse feels a little bit like an anti-vacation, because there's just so much to do at every moment. Like, you're kind of like, there's so many options.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for the vacation to go home and be like,
awesome. Be able to just work or not work when you want to. Cool. Yeah, Lighthaven's awesome. Sorry. What?
Yeah, let's. So snake cult. So
Yes.
people, I mean, maybe they listened to the last episode. The TLDR is, my theory is, women discovered self-awareness, consciousness, and metacognition, and then they figured out ways to teach that, and then men were taught self-awareness as well. And the timeline, so symbolic thought emerges like 50,000 years ago, and then these methods are developed over tens of thousands of years, and then by, I don't know, 15, 20,000 years ago, you have a good package of how to teach this. And that's why we have the Holocene transition, where basically everywhere at once you start getting full human behavior about this time. And then also that that this transition is remembered in the world's creation myths. So Go ahead.
One of the really interesting things that you pointed out that has stuck with me is that biologically modern humans existed for at least 200,000 years, right?
Yep.
And for a good 150,000 of that, they were doing nothing. They were almost indistinguishable from apes. And what the hell happened that we transitioned into modern behavior 50 to 20,000 years ago? And you're like, we discovered self-consciousness.
Yeah. So I mean, there was like Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo longi, the hobbits on Flores as well. So there's like 5 species in the genus, and then you fast forward 10,000 years, and there's just us.
Yeah.
And so it kind of seems like something happened in this time frame.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's been a bunch of stuff I would interpret as positive for the theory in the last year or so. So one of the things is there's been research on, they take polygenic risk scores. So this is, they look at all of the genes which are associated with, say, height or intelligence or schizophrenia. And what they found is that there's been quite strong selection in the last 10,000 years against schizophrenia. So my theory involves you're coming to identify with the inner voice. So the transition period towards self-awareness, that humans were much more schizophrenic.
And so the ones with bad schizophrenia genes would get weeded out.
Yes. And so there's strong evidence that was happening in the last 10,000 years. Also, really strong selection on IQ. I mean, if you believe the paper, it's a preprint by out of the Reich lab. So that's like a premier lab at Harvard, which studies population genetics. And the average IQ, like 10,000 years ago, they estimate to be like 65, which is, I mean, this is 2.3 standard deviations lower.
Right. At this point, people could not function in society at that level of IQ in the modern day.
Yeah. And
you need a caretaker to guide you around.
Yeah, and then you just project that back, I don't know, 20,000, 40,000, and it totally lines up with the record, like the archaeological record, that you start seeing art 50,000 years ago. And so if there were some ideas that people discovered, I really think it was was that idea. But you can also imagine, like, I don't know, marriage or calendars. There's a whole host of ideas that could have traveled that would have caused a gene culture interaction. And so I wrote all of the snake stuff, all the Eve theory stuff before this research. And so it really is a prediction. I said, like, you're going to find selection for schizophrenia, for higher IQ. And I don't know,
lo and behold.
Yeah, lo and behold.
Cool.
So I wrote, there's a short article I wrote, like, when do geneticists think the human brain evolved? So people can check that out. Or Dwarkesh Patel's interview with David Reich is also great.
Excellent. I remember you were here for Less Online, which was earlier this year. It was here at Lighthaven. It was an unconference. It was great. You gave a talk about the snake cult theory. I remember, like, while I was sitting there watching, you got various pushbacks from people in the audience. Did any of that help refine the ideas at all?
Not really. I don't think the pushback was very good. So the pushback was about, or the primary was that Australia has been culturally isolated for 50,000 years. That's kind of the normie belief. That it's just trivially wrong because, like, how did dingoes get there?
Okay.
And then there's a host of other technologies that are debatable.
Yeah.
So there's all these Dreamtime myths, and it's like, hey, these people showed up and established these rituals that we do at the beginning of time, and these rituals, central to them is this secret instrument, the bull roar.
I remember that from your initial write-up, and I was I couldn't figure out what it had to do with the rest of the theory, and eventually you explained this to me. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so I've done a ton of reading and writing on the bull roar since we last talked. I have a very, very long essay. It's called "The Bull Roar: Much More Than You Wanted to Know." So people can look this up. But the Dreamtime stories, if you look in the north east, the Aboriginals say, hey, these people showed up on canoes and they established this ceremony. It was the Jungawal sisters. And they brought the bull roar, and then their brother stole it from them. And ever since then, only men can have the bull roar. And if women even see or hear the bull roar, then we kill them or we rape them.
Wow.
And so this very similar fact pattern is also true in Africa. So they say the bull roar originally belonged to women, and then men stole it, and now if women see it, we kill them. So that's also in Africa, also in Papua New Guinea, also in the Amazon.
Yeah.
This same fact pattern. And so it's been studied a lot in a lot of different places. And it also is connected with like the first ancestors in many places.
Yeah. And real quick, is the answer that some humans went different places and diffused their culture, or is the answer aliens?
So, obviously there are a lot of articles, or there's some articles that's on aliens. I actually wrote archaeologists versus ancient aliens.
Yeah.
It annoys me a lot because the obvious thing is diffusion. But the main archaeologist at Göbekli Tepe, Jens Nordroff, he, instead of engaging, like I've talked to him on Twitter, he's a very smart guy, but he'll never engage with the bull roar, even though he dug up a bull roar at Göbekli Tepe. He wrote a paper about it.
Cool.
But the entire paper is just, okay, we found a perforated bone spatula. It looks like a bull roar. Or I should say, so a bull roar is it's a perforated bone or a piece of wood. So it's a bone with a hole in it, and you put it on a string and spin it around, and it makes a whirring sound. And so there's this instrument that looks like a bull roar. They made a replica, and it functions as a bull roar, but he's like, how could we ever know? And that is the extent of the paper. And then he cites all this work from the 1950s and to 70s, where it's like, hey, there must have been a bull roar cult in the Paleolithic that spread everywhere about at the Holocene transition. And so there are books written about this. The journal Nature, the editors of Nature said they have a write-up about it. They're like, yeah, there's no way this didn't diffuse. But archaeologists really, really don't like diffusion because it's,
Why?
Because you're saying that
humans travel from one place to another sometimes?
You're specifically saying that Aboriginal religion is derivative of Eurasian religion.
Oh, and that would be racist.
But it's the framing that they would put on it. So I use the word derivative. It's a little bit, a little bit of a edge to that. But that is 100% the framing they take it.
Okay. Crazy.
And so they don't talk about it. There's other more boring things, like they just don't like grand theories. They're like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
So is your explanation then aliens, or how did that come in?
No, my explanation is Eve. Eve, she must have been using a bull roar.
Yeah.
So bull roars, they go back like 20,000 years in
even the metaphorical sense
in Europe.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I definitely want to talk with you a lot more. And like you said, we're on a bit of a time budget here.
Yeah.
I believe yesterday, I just found this out, was your first time reading any of the sequences?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
It was like a canon event because I was with Steven.
Yeah.
And Ayla, and that was my first time reading was with like
wow,
kind of the pillars of the rationality community.
That's awesome. So here at Lighthaven every Tuesday there is a reading group, and you read 4 sequences normally, and then you come here and talk. We split up into groups and talk about it. It's a great thing. I didn't realize that you were not familiar with the sequences. Are you? Did you think of yourself as a rationalist before this?
I'm a Slate Star Codex fan. That's been my involvement with so probably why I'm here today is you, honestly.
Oh.
So yeah, that's probably why I came to Less Online too. I was kind of on the fence, and then I'm like, oh, at least I'll know one friendly face, and so that is one of the things that pushed me over. Because I'd also never been to an unconference where it's like you just show up and you say, I'm going to give a talk. I mean, that's what madness is this?
Right.
Who's in charge?
Anarchy. No one's in charge. Actually, Ben is in charge. Where's Ben? Ben might show up later, but he's in charge in a very loose sort of way. Okay, so what did you think about the sequences when you read them for the first time?
I did not like them. They were
Explain why.
I mean, so you're kind of putting me on the spot because I didn't read them that carefully.
Okay.
There's a rule. I was just going to show up.
Like 'em. A
I
lot
was
of people
going to
don't
show
like
up
'em.
and kind of watch,
Mm-hmm.
but they make you sniff smelling salts
Yeah.
if you haven't read them.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes
then
they
I was-
physically abuse you too.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I don't want to get into it. I was confused
Okay.
by reading them, and I felt like it wasn't entirely my fault that I was confused.
Yeah.
I felt like it was the shortcoming of Eliezer
Okay.
and his writing.
We had a bit of back and forth on this last night, and I think that the other main thing that I can totally get behind why you feel that way is that these were not good first sequence post starting points. They I think built on previous stuff, and they're part of a larger idea set.
It's almost like you should read them in sequence.
Yeah, but I can't think of really like a more helpful way to have a weekly reading group like this without the prerequisite being read all the ones before the ones we're at.
Right.
And like that could be that totally would be a way to do it if it was whatever a book series or something, like for book club if you're working through an author.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you need to read the first 3 before you pick up number 4, right?
Yeah.
But these were not ones that I would, if I was handing somebody, hey, check out Less Wrong or check out the sequences, I would not have handed them any of these. I might have handed them actually the second one, like the expecting contrary evidence.
Well,
but
That's interesting because I really, the first one, What is Evidence, I thought was pretty good, even as an intro thing. I remember when I first read it, way back in the day, was the first time it put into my head the idea that like evidence is the thing that makes what's out there match what's here in my brain. And that there's a process that if you can faithfully entangle your beliefs with what is happening in the world, you're better off. You have a better map. And I don't think I'd ever heard it quite put that way before.
I agree, but I would think I would have put map and territory before that post. Right?
Okay.
Because you use the word map in your explanation. I think that's kind of crucial. And like everyone,
Right.
a lot of people have the understanding of what that post conveys, but not the vernacular, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel where you're coming from.
Wow. Fascinating insight. I'm always interested when like people who are not familiar with these things find them for the first time and what they think about them. Is there anything you would tell someone who is reading them for the first time?
I don't know. So I think it's just a better use of time to read like Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
But that's so
what I
boring
do.
and dry.
Yeah, but
I just got shocked
so
looks
that's
from
what
other
I would
people
do.
in the audience.
Because they have there's the blog post, What is Evidence?
Mm-hmm.
There's also an encyclopedia entry on evidence, and I find it much easier to follow, and so that's that's what I would do.
Okay. All right. Did you or Matt want to talk about the Love Symposium, or
Yeah, I'll give it over to Matt.
before we go on, was there anything else you wanted to?
There's some better evidence of snake venom as an entheogen.
Oh.
So there was a YouTuber in India who was arrested at a rave for selling cobras to bite people.
Awesome. I mean, not awesome, but
So that's
interesting.
and then also a couple of the Bulwer cults. So one in ancient Greece, and then one in the Pueblo Indians. They both used snake venom, and there's better evidence now for that I've found.
Very cool.
Anyway, it's been on a lot of fronts finding more evidence for the theory.
Have you had any luck talking with? Oh, do you have anything?
I was gonna say I can get behind legalizing drugs or whatever, decriminalizing the distribution and use. But if the drug bites you, I think it makes sense to arrest this person, whether they're using them to get high or just hurt each other.
It's harder to dose it when the the thing doing the dosing is the animal.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Have you had any luck like reaching out to people, universities, wherever, getting the idea more out there?
I just today I published a podcast interview with Tom Froese, he's a cognitive scientist at the University of Okinawa, and he actually had a very, very similar idea to me that he published in 2014.
Awesome.
Where he says, hey, there must have been some ritual which helped develop subject-object separation,
Yeah.
and that all of the really painful, horrible rituals we see throughout the world, he wouldn't say horrible, but that those are downstream of this original, the one that caused consciousness or helped us learn consciousness. And so I had him on, and I'm like, hey, the first drug was snake venom.
Yeah.
And he did like that.
Nice. Cool. All right.
That's awesome. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Could I actually intervene with one last follow-up to Andrew's question?
Hold on a sec. Turn the microphone so that it is the blue is facing towards your mouth.
Hello.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
And yes, go ahead.
I want one more question to ask Andrew that I'm surprised maybe hasn't been asked or like in general in his talks, but anytime you have like a theory of how humans became something other than an animal, though we are animals, but like that we're something special, it comes with it a question of like, so what? And like, what do we do next then? And like, if you have a theory that aliens are the reason we have pyramids, the so what is go find the aliens. If it's like that, agricultural surplus did it, then how do we get more surplus in general to become more this way? And if it's like that it was just genetic selection or something that made us specialer than Neanderthal, then it's like improve our genes. So then the question is like, and then if it's like the mushrooms, then maybe you get all the way to like DMT multiverses and just do more of that or whatever. So like, what is the big deal? Or like, if it is snake venom, what do we do next?
Yeah, so I think Tyler Cowen would be like, if this is true, kind of who goes up and who goes down. That's kind of how I'll answer it. And I think if this is true, Jordan Peterson.
Oh, why so?
Because essentially, so what I like that he says that I agree with is that these myths, like all the myths, especially the creation stories, are essentially a 40,000 year conversation about what to do about the human condition. So what do we do about that we're more than just matter, like that there's this duality separation? Because it's a very hard problem to solve. You have
But do you think he has decent answers about what to do about that? Because a lot of people are thinking, what do we do about the human condition, right?
Yeah, so I think actually there are pretty decent answers in
Peterson?
Peterson, I would just say the Buddhism and the New Testament. That's for me. It's hard to get better than those, and I think a lot of people reject or discount those because I don't know, the people didn't even know how we evolved or something like that. But basically, that Darwin is a strong reason to reject Christianity, and if you have a kind of a synthesis, then you can maybe not throw out all of the baby with the bathwater. So that would be my answer. But
Okay.
I mean, I don't know exactly what to do if it's true.
Interesting. Cool.
Does it expand to like we need more duality? We need to be duality maxing. We need to be schizophrenia minimizing. We need to have egregores of the like combination of human species come into consciousness and have itself ask itself, I am like, how do we duality max?
I don't think any religion is about duality maxing, right? It's all like atonement is literally at one-ment. It's literally solving. So there's the fall of Adam and Eve where you get duality, and then Christ is the answer. Where I mean, if you die before you die, you won't die when you die. So it's the eternal Dionysian mystery. I think that these people way smarter than me kind of worked that stuff out, and it would be. I just think that there's my gut tells me there's something to that.
All
right. Thank
Cool.
you. That
Thanks.
actually leads me to a lot of other things I want to follow up with you at a later point. Matt.
Hello.
You are. This is the kind of people you run into when you're at Lighthaven. People who come up like even better podcast questions, and I'm like, why isn't everyone like this? And they are, I guess. If you live here, it's great.
Makes me think I suck at my part-time job.
You do not. It's more of a what is it? When you get a million people all thinking about things, it's better.
Oh yeah, no, of course. It's more perspectives and different angles. So
Yeah. How long have you been here at Lighthaven?
Well, I also came here the first time for Less Online, and actually that was also the first sequences reading thing that was like part of Eternal September. I also read it for the first time, and I also thought, so I'd read a lot of other less wrong type stuff, rationalist type stuff, like Scott Alexander, and I also thought Eliezer was very pedantic or like very hard to read. But since like reading some H.P. Moore and some of his sequences, and I think also just being in the linguistic meme space of Lighthaven, suddenly he's gotten a lot easier to read, and I've come to accept he is a genius, and that his writing's amazing. But it took a little bit of time.
Interesting.
When you tried it for the first time, did you start from the beginning or just from a random post you came across?
I can't remember. I think it was like sequences, highlights, and I'd encountered his writing a few times, and I literally stopped on the first like few sentences each time because I was like, why does he have to write like this? Like, it's so unapproachable compared to Scott Alexander's writing.
I see.
It felt kind of like push up the glasses meme nerd. Like
we got at least one silent clap for that. Yeah, I like them both. I think it's apples and oranges, or rather apples and something way distinct from apples.
Shoes.
Something else nourishing, but who cares? Apples and steak. But no, like I like that I can read a less wrong post in 3 to 5 minutes. And I don't have to set aside an afternoon because I'm a pretty slow reader. So reading a Slate Star Codex post really is like an undertaking for me. But I've never regretted finishing one. It's just it's a larger chunk of time. But yeah, I think it is different audiences, and I think there's probably a reason why Scott Alexander has I guess I'm assuming a wider readership. He's certainly talked about in more circles, like outside of just rationality, than Yudkowsky's sequences are, I think.
It really puts into perspective, because you said once you were immersed here in the meme space and got the vocabulary, it started making a lot more sense, and you're like, oh, this is brilliant. It puts again into perspective like how important the fact that it was in a sequence was, because I started reading it from post number 1, when he was still with Robin Hanson, and getting it slowly, just at 3-5 minutes a day over time, really built up all the foundational stuff. And I guess it's a lot harder to jump in when you're trying to immerse yourself into something that is written to a great degree of density eventually, and don't have the slow walk in. What was the major differences in the meme space? Like, what was it that brought you around, if you remember?
It might just be the way people talk here is like quite dense. Which I think it's like the density of information, something like that, in like the sentence.
Okay.
And like maybe there's just a default amount of density people are used to walking through cognitively when reading, and Eliezer packs it a lot tighter than most people are used to. But I'm not so sure that that's exactly the case, because what I binged for years leading up to that was like archive papers on like machine learning, and those must be denser. But I think I was in the meme space of like machine learning research, so I knew all the words, I knew the phrases. I could basically predict not only what the next token in the paper I was reading was, but what the next paper will be from that research group. So nice. I think it's just like learning the lingo and like the concepts. I got less lost, and like I understood kind of what was going on there.
Awesome. Do you I guess you find value in the sequences now. Would you tell people to read them? How would you introduce people to this whole thing? Or would you just tell them to live at Lighthaven for a few months?
I think that I would.
That last option is pretty unattainable for most people, so hopefully that's not the answer.
Yeah, and I also think like probably I'm not going to encourage anyone to do it. I'm actually going to discourage, and if they do it anyway, then they are meant for it.
Oh, okay.
The whole like Robin Hanson like make more exclusive cultures. And like your guys' previous podcast episode of like keep the normies out, I'm actually going to tell you not to come. Do not come here. It's full of like nerds, and we won't welcome you. And if you want to call my bluff, come and do it and prove me wrong. But if you already get the inclination, how dare he, then maybe you are right for it.
Cool. So what is it that you're doing right now?
So we're hosting a symposium, and feel free to come. So this all started when I was doing research, and actually I have a podcast episode with Andrew where we dive really deep in it.
What's the name of your guys' podcast?
His podcast.
Vectors of Mind.
Oh, of course. Same as your blog, right? Yeah.
So he interviewed me about it, but I I was working on like image synthesis stuff starting in like 2019. Style Gang came out and I said, this is magic, where like it can map out the latent space of human faces. And then I just worked on it for like several years. And like the Stable Diffusion moment happened, and Midjourney happened, and I was working at a startup that was like a competitor to Midjourney, and it didn't work out, and we didn't like beat Midjourney at all, not even a chance. And I was like, what do I want to work on instead? Because I loved the concept even more than of creating images, though I definitely loved making images more than I loved making words with ML models. Is like, I love the concept of like over large amounts of data, understanding what the entire possible affordance space is for a given concept. And so I've done tons of visualization on like large sets of data to try to see like what all the possible things are. One of my favorite pieces of work is this thing called Open Syllabus Galaxy. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's like this, it's all the books that have been assigned in syllabi of all like the US and I think some Canadian and European university curriculums. I think all English textbooks. And it maps out which textbooks are similar to each other and not. And it's like, it must be over 1 million, probably fewer than 10 million. And anyway, I was like, okay, if we can use large data on unsupervised learning to learn the entire latent space, or at least a very dense, very granular latent space of human faces, why not on human personality? And the reason this is cool is for similar reasons that like word to vec stuff is kind of cool. You can like subtract man from the word king, the vector for the word king, and add the vector for woman, and you end up at the coordinate for the word queen.
Right.
And like in the same way, if you have vector spaces for like any given thing, for example, all of our personalities, and then you also have labeled data on the relationships we currently have with other people, you now have a geometric relationship established where this coordinate space tends to have these kind of relationships with people in this coordinate space. And you can learn over that and you can learn patterns. One way to think about like a very dense coordinate space that would be like compressed into 2 dimensions is like, if you've ever seen like a cultural map of Europe, I don't know if you've seen like those pictures where they draw lines and like 14 ways to divide Europe.
Right.
They say like, you know, potato Europe versus wine Europe, or beer Europe versus wine Europe, tomato versus potato Europe. They say like, you guys know all the ones, like, you know, there's different ways to split it. And in the same way, if you have a dense latent space, there's tons of ways to split that up in like terms of human personality. But there's rules you could learn about like, if you go from certain regions in Europe to others, these relationships start to form between the people in these directions. Not sure how good the metaphor is, but that's the concept. Is like you can make these intuitions about human relationships geometric facts, and then like basically, if I can parameterize you and I can parameterize every other person in the world, I could have between you and every given person a pairwise like a distribution of likely relationship outcomes you two will discover. So the relationship outcome space is also a manifold, separate from the personality manifold space. This manifold is like everyone who's like roommates with each other is in this region, people who are strangers all in this region, like types of stranger relationships, best friends, but then different types of best friends, different types of marriages. And it's all in this space. And you can map, so there's like nodes in the relationship space, and then you draw an edge between them. That edge is itself a coordinate in relationship space. And I can basically hypothesize that 2 people paired up, what is the probability of where they'll end up in relationship space? And secondly, I can draw labels to say, how will each party perceive that relationship in terms of how much they enjoy it?
Okay. So this sounds amazing, but wouldn't you need vast amounts of data, like just ungodly amounts of data to draw out that map?
So this is what stalled image synthesis for a long time. One thing they did was just massively restrict the domain. So in human data, you could just massively restrict it to like personality inventory questions for like Big Five. But then eventually why Stable Diffusion worked was that Lion made 5B, or they scraped Common Crawl and got 5 billion images along with caption pairs. One of the first data sets we're thinking of using is something called TV tropes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So TV tropes basically gives you a bipartite graph, so two sides, two categories of things. The first one is characters, and the second one is tropes.
Okay.
And you draw edges between them, and then you can use something called node to vec to get like a latent space of things where their coordinates, their closeness is determined by how often they reach each other on this graph in a random walk. And so this is how you can get different characters to be further or closer to each other. And then all I need to do to get a real human plotted in that space is to figure out which tropes they relate to.
Okay.
And so that's the way you can plot humans in a way that is very high dimensional and abstract rather than like simplistic. Because these tropes, there's like probably like 40,000 tropes on TV tropes. They cover, the theory is, and this is kind of gets into like, similar to like Andrew's lexical hypothesis, or his PhD was on a deep lexical hypothesis. The lexical hypothesis is how the Big Five got created. But this gets into the idea of like maybe a tropical hypothesis. I've never come up with this before, but like the hypothesis would be that if all personality traits are encoded in our language, probably all significant human personality phenotypes are encoded on TV tropes. Is the idea, because it would be encoded in our books, in our movies, in our TV shows. So that's my hypothesis, that information already exists. I also think in general, LLMs have already encoded all personality information. And if they haven't, probably something like Neuralink has, like basically if you get like brain data, that might be the last mile. So I think it's like fairly tractable. This conference is like supposed to be just the first step to get people to understand that I think this is possible and try to convince these people who are doing startups, who are engineers, who are researchers in this, that it is possible for us to solve this. And the reason it should be solved is because basically my view is that almost all like quality of life beyond shelter and food and stuff comes from relationships. And so, and also like maybe even like things happening comes from relationships. And relationships are essentially a search problem. You like choose to, and like there's like people who you have an asymptotic limit of like relationship quality you'll achieve with them. And I think this actually ends up looking like predator prey cycles usually. Don't read too far into that, but it's like oscillates basically. You and a person will reach kind of an asymptote, and then your relationship will get better and worse for the exact same reasons in the exact same ways. Maybe both you will mature a bit and it'll like stabilize or like change a bit, but essentially like you and every one other person have an asymptotic limit of relationship quality you'll achieve. And my secondary theory is that the height of this asymptotic limit is actually goes up exponentially as you get more compatible, not linearly.
Okay.
And so like it's like soulmates, like the quality of life you can have with someone, or like it's some kind of shape where if I like filtering down to like a person who's a 1 in a million for you is that person is, you're going to have way better relationship asymptote levels than the person who's like a 1 in 10,000 level of compatibility for you.
Okay.
So it's not just like a little bit better to find that person. It's a lot better, and it's worth the effort. And the effort is a search process, because if you're just going around talking to people, you have to have some idea that it takes some amount of time to get enough information to have an estimate of the asymptote. But then you need even more information to discover it. And I think with most people, especially if they're very polite or nice or whatever, it's going to take an extremely long time to get an idea of where the asymptote actually ends. And you might literally not have enough time. And I think also this is part of why in this modern era where relationships are mostly about sort of the top of Maslow's hierarchy rather than the bottoms, this is why fewer relationships are happening, is that people like realize this won't really fix me. Like, I'm going to invest all this time in this person. It's going to hit a limit that is unsatisfying socially. And so if we can predict who has the highest theoretical asymptote with you over 10,000 different users, then we should send you that person and have you invest time in them.
I saw that Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to follow up with 10 things on that,
Yeah.
but I realized it's 5 o'clock. Do you have to run?
Maybe 15 more minutes.
I don't want to push you guys if it's,
How hard, is it bad if we show up there? I've never been there.
It's an Uber to SF, so we have like, let's do like 5 minutes.
All right,
10, yeah.
sure. We'll keep you just a couple more. I guess well, maybe this can save a lot of the time. Is there anywhere where you're writing this or working on it that I and everyone else can go look at, or is this all currently just on your laptop?
This is on my laptop or like dispersed along tweets and mostly in the minds of people I've talked to about it. I've been, or on Andrew's Vector of Mind podcast. Actually, he did an extremely good job interviewing me on it.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Vectorsofmind.substack.com. Vectors of, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think probably after this first symposium, I will do a pretty big, like a Z length blog post on like, yeah, all the work and like stuff that we discover at the symposium.
You
Awesome.
seem to be really all in on like finding the one ideal perfect person that hits everything, whereas I prefer. Okay, so I do have one ideal person that is really great, but
Watch her sit up straight. Choose your words carefully.
No, she's amazing. She already knows this about me, but everyone who's just been listening to this episode knows about this about me. I like being in larger groups of people, and I feel the network of, since people are different and meet different, scratch different itches, like maybe having a larger network of people that you aren't quite as perfect with also is great. Like I do think relationships are what make life meaningful and good, and I would be less enthusiastic about like a life isolated with one person and much happier with living someplace like this where it's a commune of 15, 20 people that you have weaker relationships with, but you see them often, and they're all pretty close to you.
So I was advocating for like optimization over some objective. But I do not have a prior that like, oh, there's this one person, your soulmate, and that's what we're trying to find. What I'm saying is like you have outcomes that you want to like measure and optimize for, and you can feed those in as like labels to the degree to which they're achieved with any given person. Mm-hmm. And it's only if you vectorize both the relationship target space and the human personality space can you get a model to like optimize over that to find you what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. So probably what is true is that like for any given person, there's going to be some sort of social graph that you have like these edges, and they even have edges that maximizes some target goal like dopamine, serotonin release, or something like maybe a little less like exact than that, but just social satisfaction. And like you can discover that, and I'm basically just like a deep learning maximalist and like embed things maximalist. Okay. I think this just works all the time, every time, if you throw enough data and enough like parameters at it. And so I'm just saying we do that for relationships and human personality, and we can like control our own destiny and don't have to have for many, though I say it, here at Lighthaven, it's like doesn't work. It's like none of us have this problem here now as much, but in general in the world, I think there's a huge search problem for finding like really good friends.
Mm-hmm.
That was one point I was going to mention, is that you can like, finding the 1 in a million person is going to be really hard if you're talking to one person at a time, right?
Yeah.
Especially just randomly. So getting, if you go to a niche conference, there's a good chance that you'll find some overlap. I mean, you already have that niche thing in common, right? And so you can narrow down, I think, a lot with that sort of thing. I had another thought to include. I guess it was just going to be something along the lines of, like I think you have to compromise less for a successful, I guess, like pair bonding relationship with your 1 in a million partner than you would with your 1 in 1,000 partner, right? Like substantially. Your 1 in 1,000 partner might check several of the boxes that you check, but they'll have several others that you don't, and vice versa. And I think it's just really interesting, the idea of trying to find that with the process that's better than what we've been doing the whole time, which is hopefully we'll run into that person, right?
If your search process is inefficient enough, you will never find the thing you're looking for.
Right, totally. Yeah, that's.
I think most humans basically never do find the optimal thing of social graph that they're looking for. I think some people will find an extremely high quality partner or even extremely high quality friends, but there's an optimal social graph that I think no one in history ever achieves. And probably even with my tools, they wouldn't achieve it, but they'd get way closer than they currently are.
Well, I do want to follow up on that and learn more when it's.
I'll be
when you're ready to
presenting
share it.
on Friday or Saturday. Yeah.
I'll be leaving on Saturday, but whatever I can get my hands on after that. Maybe we'll find some way to stay in touch or something.
Yeah.
Get you back on the show and get the
Yeah.
the post presentation version.
Yeah.
How much of Live Symposium is this, and how much is various other things as well?
I think I'm the main one talking about this. Andrew, half of his talks are also about this. He's giving too. His work is like pretty awesome. It's actually, I was so into it that when I met Andrew, I started telling him about it, and then I found out that was his work. So that was like kind of the crazy way we met, was me getting excited about his PhD thesis that I didn't know was his when he brought up a thing that reminded me of it. So yeah, his work on it is very cool too. I think a solid basically what happened is that I was on Twitter and I saw for like 2-3 years straight while I was researching this stuff, people just every once in a while taking weird shots in the dark on like relationship advice. And I always feel like no one took it very seriously as like an actual problem to solve, like a research problem. They always just said, bleh. We're lonely,
Be yourself.
Yeah, like random.
Don't be yourself.
Yeah, like, and I'm just like, okay, no, like, stop, like, just saying random stuff and then forgetting about it. We need to actually treat this as a thing we can know the truth about and solve. And so, like, I wanted to get everyone together. So we have, like, one person called Ava who's coming. She's, like, a pretty famous Twitterer. Ayla's also coming. We have, who else? Jake from Keeper AI is coming. He's the CEO of that. So we're having, like, a lot of people who basically are these, like, people on Twitter who talk about dating, but then, like, I want to make it like a community where we're, like, no longer just having random people who their job is something else. Than making comments about dating, and rather say this is a real like societal goal, a civilizational goal, a species goal to solve this.
So where are you, if this might get too personal, where are you on the monogamy polyamory spectrum?
I'm monogamous.
Okay. How is this going to work with the people who are polyamorous?
So yeah, at the conference we are going to kick out all the poly people.
Shit.
Yeah.
I was planning to show up.
Yeah, it was actually it's like we're actually going to lock you guys up. It's 2024.
Yeah.
Come January, we're going to get a list.
Until we're monogamous.
Yeah. Actually, in a direct goal. So the main reason I invited Andrew is the deep lexical hypothesis work. As a nice bonus, because Andrew's a co-host. He also attended Brigham Young University, specifically a course there called BYU's Marriage Readiness Course. This is like maybe as trad as it could ever get. Is like Brigham Young Mormons telling you how to be ready for marriage. And
so trad it horseshoes back to polygamy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of the Mormons did not escape the horseshoe charges. Like you get so trad that you become a polygamist as well. So, and then we also have people who are like into poly stuff. My view is that, and so I'm going to give a talk on the history of marriage book written by Stephanie Kuntz. I messaged her; she wanted to come, but she couldn't make it. Her book changed my view on why we're having so many problems when it comes to. Or at least a lot of people have views that like marriage now is like worse than it was in some time like the 50s, at least for some people. This is maybe more of a trad or conservative view, but I think they have some points that are interesting on that. And she convinced me through her book that the main cause of this is not maybe progressive culture. And I think there's a lot of reasons that it's reasonable to have pointed a finger at progressive culture because it doesn't value traditional relationships, and it doesn't even value maybe like parenting very much. But her view is that it's mostly actually about the Industrial Revolution and how this got rid of the roles that, or it changed the provider of things you used to get provided to, by your family from. So it's like, protection was usually your family. Career, like employment, was usually your family. Those kind of things are now provided by the state or by your corporation that you're working for. And so her view is the Industrial Revolution made us devalue family And my view is that now we are these optimizers who are only looking for one thing anymore from a family, and that is Maslow's peak hierarchy, like some sort of self-fulfillment. And to do that, you now can't just take the other girl in the village who's, whatever, and maybe has attractive land next to yours. You need someone who is like basically a soulmate. And I think people psychologically realize, okay, this is where my theory gets weird. I think subconsciously, people on planet Earth right now, aside from other things maybe, psychologically realize that the technology I'm describing can be built. And what they are thinking is, I do not want to get married to someone who is suboptimal when I know, and this is a fact for sure. Everyone does have some sorted list on Earth of like asymptotic relationship quality. I think we could all agree that that kind of exists theoretically, right?
I would not agree to that readily.
If we simulated you right now and put you in a room with every single person on Earth, and then we asked you after that room, like for like you were stuck in it for like a day, and we asked you afterwards how you felt, like 1 through 100, we would get a sorted list that was fairly consistent, don't you think?
If you put everyone on Earth, then everyone could get a number between 1 and 100. Yes, but I don't think there's but I don't think there's one person that'd be higher than any other person.
No. I'm just saying that there would be sorted lists.
No, not on an individual level.
Not on an individual level. I'm saying like people would get a fairly consistent score.
Sure.
And that's
but
all.
When you've got several billion people, there's going to be millions in each of the 1 percentile levels.
Yeah. And so then you just need more filtering after that.
Okay.
But what I'm
all right. I would be happy with anyone in my top 95. I'm pretty damn sure.
That's fine, and you're a satisficer, and that's why you have a happy life.
Oh, shots fired. Okay.
No, that's why you have a happy life. Satisficer is, in psychology terms, when it comes to relationship, like talking, like when people talk about relationships, satisficers are actually the only people in the modern era who do have good relationships.
No.
So relationship optimizers are the ones who basically have all the problems where they're not getting married.
No.
And so you're saying I'm okay with the top 5%, and I'm saying
More
that
than okay, I'd be super happy.
Super happy. And I think a lot of my theory is that, or at least basically what I'm saying is that to all relationship optimizers out there, I think that you're not the problem. Technology is the problem for not allowing you to optimize to the level you want. And I think that some people are right for trying to look for the top, that like they literally do want to find what I'm talking about. And I think probably half of them, even then, will have relationship problems because like the optimizers are actually like trying to guard against something that's wrong in them, or they're not able to have healthy relationships. But I think the other half just genuinely are trying to find like some sort of connection that they feel theoretically must exist, and they don't find it. And
also, super happy may be an exaggeration. I would be happy. I've spent most of my life pretty happy, but every now and then I look over at Jennifer and I'm like, shit, it would take me so many fucking years to find someone as cool as her again.
Yeah. She's not top 5% for you.
God, no.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is like, imagine if that, like, so I also have like friends and partners who like are that much higher up than top 5%, even much higher up than like 1 in 10,000. And it took me a long time to find them, and I had to go to very specific groups in order that like filtered for that.
I just got fucking lucky.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be said about meeting a lot of people, because you might get really fucking lucky if you're really open.
But what if I could make it for you for platonic relationships as well to get you that lucky all the time, where there were 100 people?
Sounds like magic. Are you involving aliens? This is alien technology, isn't it?
Actually, you just need to like say I am, and they are.
Okay. This gets to be a book. How to Get Lucky should be in the title somewhere.
Oh my god, that's such a good. Oh my god, I think you just wrote came up with the title of my blog post.
All right.
How to Get Lucky.
Honorary credit. No, that's awesome. And I also just happened to get lucky. I don't know if I mentioned this. Fun fact, I went to elementary school with my spouse. But we shared proximity as children, but different junior high and high school, and met up middle of college. But it's fun, being able to find class photos when we're 10 and be like, oh, look, there she is.
So another value of this tool, if you have like human personality embedded and you can like do cool latent space things over relationship outcomes, is you can also improve relationships that currently exist, not even just searching for new ones, by saying, here are common failure points or phase transitions towards better relationship outcomes with this exact pair of people with these personality traits, and you just do these things. You have these conversations, you adopt these patterns, and this is how these two people with these two exact relationship types improve. And I feel like it's kind of like an owner's manual for a car.
This hasn't been tested in the real world yet, though, right?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but like people do come up, like, so the Gottmans are like a great example of like people who tried this with like non-big data. The Gottman Institute came up with this heuristic, this like test that works where they have like a married couple come in for 5 minutes and talk, or maybe it's like half an hour. And
Oh, okay. In that case,
bring it home so you don't miss your car. But.
Well, I want to go back to poly erasure real quick.
what is it? Poly
erasure.
Yeah.
Okay, because I
Poor
think
Inyash.
yeah, the monogamous people.
Thankfully, you guys huddle together, so it's easy to get all of you at once.
The monogamous people have so much freaking institutional wealth already in terms of like how their relationships are structured, all the support they get from the rest of society, and there is like almost nothing like that for polyamorous culture. And I think we need a love symposium that helps with that as well, because there is very little cultural knowledge about how to be poly successfully, and I realize that's not what you're focusing on, but maybe if like you could keep that in the background at some point.
My talks, what I'm doing will be like 5% of what the symposium's about.
Yeah.
Anyone, and I'm sure there's a lot at Lighthaven are giving talks, can make that, and they can have a soapbox for hours talking about poly stuff.
Interesting.
Anyone can talk about anything they want. I am not like that. Like I'm not gonna like what I find interesting is no one else has to find interesting there. Those who do can find it interesting, and anything you find interesting about relationships, you can talk about that. And we've invited a very, very, very different group of people.
Since you are the trope master, are you looking out for tropes that are more important and more successful among the polyamorous folk as well?
Then let him go so his car doesn't give
What
him.
is? What is? I didn't quite.
Tropes, like TV tropes, is how you're one of the ways you're helping to filter people.
Yeah.
Are you looking out for things the tropes that align would make for shitty relationships among monogamous people, but really good relationships among polyamorous people, or is it entirely monogamous focused right now?
What? Oh, this is almost like theoretical level still. We don't have like labeled data for relationship outcomes.
Okay.
So yeah, not like we're not even to the stage where we can make sure that like the AI will not discriminate against poly outcome.
Good. Then I've intervened early enough.
Yeah, you've intervened early enough. We'll make sure that
look for those.
Yeah, we'll make sure to think about the hope like the tech will work for you.
Cool.
I did invite Piper on the show, who is very poly.
Nice.
And after I give my history of marriage talk, she's going to come in and give a future of marriage talk because she's like a sci-fi expert. Maybe the most knowledgeable about she's actually going to be hosting a sci-fi symposium here as well next month.
Awesome.
But she's giving a talk about that, so I'm sure she's going to have a lot of thoughts.
Oh my God, I'm signing up for the sci-fi symposium.
Yeah,
Matt, I'm just mindful of your time. If you ordered the car a few minutes ago, it's going to be here.
I'll be good. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, cool.
So, but let's talk again. That's all I want to say. So I don't want to cut you off. Because I could do this for another hour and a half.
I'm free tomorrow anyway.
Okay, I'm not going to be here tomorrow, but yeah.
Well, we'll have you back on at some point to talk.
You
This
can
is
always
really
just
cool.
talk by yourself with him tomorrow for an hour.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, no, we'll do some of
You
that.
got all the
But this
hardware
is fun
here.
enough to share too. So
Totes.
thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. I'm not trying to kick you off. I'm enthusiastically
We got
trying
to
to
get
shut
the
myself
philosophy
down.
reading night.
So.
Also,
Yeah.
I randomly ordered packages to AGI House. I have to go pick up because I lived there for a week while Lighthaven was shut down.
Oh no!
Switching sides. Yeah.
I love this. The group houses are such a cool innovation.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great talking to you.
Alrighty. Wow, we are already at 5:20. Is there people in the audience who wish to say anything, ask any questions, anything along those lines?
I didn't get to meet you when you came in. You were talking to Inyash, but I missed it. And every time I see you out of the corner of my eye, you look like Brendan Fraser.
Here, take this just for a minute.
Hey, I'm Jay.
Hey, Jay.
Jay, you said you've been listening to the podcast for a while.
Yeah, for quite a while. I got into rationality, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Awesome. How did you find rationality?
Well, I lived in Columbus, Ohio, and there was a Columbus rationality group.
Oh, cool.
And so I went to one of their meetups, I think.
But like you don't just walk in off the street to a meetup. Like, how did you find the meetup?
Through meetup.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were looking specifically for things like atheism, rationalism, philosophy?
Yeah, just whatever sounded interesting to me. All of those
Okay.
would be interesting subjects.
Yeah.
And so I think the first meetup was actually on steel manning.
Ah,
Um, So I just went and got to meet people and, got connected there. Got pretty involved in that group. And eventually found you guys' podcast. I don't know exactly when in there, but so, yeah. I would be interested in hearing more about your thoughts about a quote-unquote rationalist religion. A little bit of background about me. I was raised an evangelical Christian.
Okay.
And I was actually Christian up through, I think, my 30s. I'm really bad at years and dates. And
Me
things.
too.
So, I appreciate the community and the sense of purpose, the way that it can structure life for people who aren't that conscious about it. And so, I think it would be really interesting to have some sort of equivalent for rationalists, right? So that's a mix of sort of philosophies and beliefs and guidances, and then also social things, events and rituals. I think, we have secular solstice out here in the Bay Area. I love that. We have Petrov Day, although I feel like it got moved a little bit online, and there has been less, maybe because I just don't have that many rationalist friends that I get to hang out with, but there's been like less in person with Petrov Day and other events and stuff.
When do you think that started happening, that it's less in person for Petrov Day?
I think it was COVID. So like
I got that
pre-COVID, I went to a couple Petrov Day events here in the Bay Area where they were just like, hey, we're going to have Petrov Day, right? And then with COVID, a lot of things moved online and they haven't really come back. So like this year, I think, obviously Less Wrong had their annual Petrov Day stuff. I thought that was cool. But I think they posted like the night before, like, oh yeah, by the way, we'll do a Petrov Day thing, right? So I didn't make it out because it was like last minute, But I think that's an example of how the online stuff came first and was the focus. The in-person stuff was kind of felt like an afterthought.
So you said, all right, this is a thing I've been thinking about and kind of spinning in place for a while. I'm not sure how to go forward with it. What was the purpose that you found in Christianity back when you were a Christian? Like, what was the purpose of the group?
I think for me, it gave me a sense of meaning and purpose in life.
But what was that purpose?
I mean, ostensibly it was serving God. I mean, I think...
Did you believe in God?
Yeah.
And did you
I was
believe
a
you were serving him?
real believer.
Yeah. And did you believe you were serving him by what you were doing?
I believed I was trying.
Okay.
So I think that I am lower empathy in general.
Okay.
And I later came to sort of see that as a disconnect where it was like, I was being told this is what you have to do. You have to care for people. You have to, and I was like, that's just not what's important to me personally. Right. So there was a bit of a disconnect there. But,
what was important to you personally? What you would like to do?
I mean, I love programming and, so I'm a bit of a geek about philosophy and stuff like that. So,
would there ever have been a way for you to program for the glory of God, do you think?
I mean, I suppose it's theoretically possible.
Yeah.
With God, all things are possible, Inyash.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day, everyone worked with material stuff, right? And then if you want to do something for the glory of God, you would make a cathedral or grow some food and give it to the poor or something,
I'm sure you could make a good app or website or something,
Yeah, but it's anyways.
I didn't mean to derail. I wanted to go on the joke of.
I mean, I would say another example of that is like I took some Bible study classes at my church that were basically theology, seminary level classes, right? Where we would really get into the details of theology and stuff like that. And I mean, we had thousands of people in our church and like 5 people showed up to this thing, So that was an example of I don't know, fitting with my mentality in the religious space. But
And did you find emotional fulfillment in doing these things?
I did. I was involved in my church's Christmas production. Cool. Massive production. We're talking hundreds of people. They would rent animals and bring them into the auditorium and like do all sorts of cool stuff. And that was really meaningful to have something that, that many people were involved in and working together, volunteering, putting on this presentation. And it was exhausting, but, powerful at the same time, and brought you to connect together and connected you, right?
And the presentation was for other people in the church?
Well, so we would sell tickets, and it was known all throughout Columbus as, it was pretty famous. It ran for like 20 or 30 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you know the people that were working on it? Did you know them already? Were they like in your local community?
Well, I had been attending the church for a while, so I knew through the church the people that had been working on it. And then, basically, as long as you were a church member, you could sign up to volunteer and be part of it.
One of the major things I keep coming back to and not quite knowing what to do about is like, what would be the purpose of a rationalist community? Because seeing as we're atheists, I keep coming back to Brandon Hendrickson that I've talked to about this a few times. It seems to be like the secular churches he went to that tried to do this same sort of thing never had a sacred mission, is what he calls it. It's like we get together because we like each other and we want a community, but there's no central mission like spread God's word or embody the life of Christ in your own dealings or whatever it was. And he said that without a sacred mission like that, things eventually just kind of people sort of stopped coming. They got busy, something, whatever. And I'm not sure what a rationalist sacred mission would be. Like, what is something that would give you think, a feeling of combined purpose that we could do?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't have a great answer for that. For a while, I thought it was going to be growing as rationalists. But I have yet to see an example of that really working really well. For a while in the Columbus Rationality Group, we tried to have rationalist dojos hosted by several different people, and it never quite worked right. And so it never felt like, okay, this could be the core of something where we could meet on a regular basis to build up our rationality skills, right? So I don't have a great answer of what that is.
The Jehovah's Witnesses had a similar thing where like we're out there saving souls. Like this is fucking important because these people are gonna die forever if we don't save them. And the closest we have is AI maybe, but that's
what I was gonna say. But I think that this might be where the disconnect happens and why and I haven't given it half as much thought as you have, but maybe not 10% even. But my immediate knee-jerk reaction is that, like, safe AI sounds like it could be the thing and probably should be. But it's the fact that it's a terrestrial goal, I think makes it not really good candidate for like the religious ambition.
I mean, if you're going for AI God, that's good religious ambition. That's like no one ever has to die again. We have infinite material prosperity. We can spend our entire in all of eternity building beautiful relationships and having amazing experiences. Like, well, so that's great to work towards. But then you start sounding like a religion, which drives away a lot of people. But
it's true. But that also sounds like the goal of Christianity is to get into heaven, and it's not really, right? Like if your goal is that, well, it depends on your flavor of Christianity. I would like to think that if that was your only if that was really what you wanted, then God would see like that's not a good reason to be to get into heaven.
And that isn't really the goal, because if that's your goal, you can just kill yourself. Well, not necessarily kill yourself, but the goal is to like help other people get to heaven.
Exactly. So like that's what I mean by like that's where having that as the goal for a rationalist religion wouldn't really work, because unless it's like just raising AI awareness or something, like that'd be the same thing as like the proselytizing thing, right? Yeah. But that sounds so hollow, right?
It's like raise awareness about global warming or breast cancer or something.
Yeah, so maybe this is, and the fact that we can't think of an answer in 5 minutes is completely legitimate, because that sounds like a harder problem than that time box. But like, it's not clear to me that having a goal that is based in reality would actually fit for a religious ambition.
And that's a problem for a rationalist group.
I don't know that it matters whether it's based in reality or not, but I think part of the problem with bringing about AI is it's a goal with an endpoint, right? So like
That's a better way. That's a better way to say. What I was
if
trying
the
to
goal
say.
were something like some form of self-improvement, well, we can all do self-improvement perpetually, right? And there'll always be new people that need self-improvement.
#GoToTheRose.org.
Well, it's okay if the goal has an endpoint, as long as the endpoint either A, will never be reached, or B, results in what was the rapture, right? Because either you'll never reach it and you'll have a community or always striving for it, or you do get rapture and then everything is great forever and we don't have to worry about this shit anyway, because we can completely modify ourselves.
Sure. But I do agree that some sense of purpose would be really helpful.
Yeah.
I haven't had the opportunity to go to like an atheist type church, right? Or Unitarian Universalist, which is very similar. But I've heard, reports from people who have and who, to me, make it sound like a social club with platitudes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really I want a social club of people that I want to hang out with. Sure.
Yeah.
But that doesn't quite cut it. And the platitudes don't quite,
The platitudes make it worse.
Yeah.
I found an annoying trend that platitudes are often wisdom, but it doesn't become wisdom until it clicks. But there's a reason that the platitudes are popular, and then when it does land, you're like, oh, that's why everyone's been saying this for 3,000 years. But it depends on the platitude, I'm sure too.
Did you have a comment on the AI thing?
I had a comment about. I had a comment about the goal of whatever the rationalist religion ends up being, if it ends up being, and it's more of a constraint, which is, I think that a large number of people who end up moving away from rationality to more woo stuff are secretly doing it because they're looking for dates.
Oh, dates like with the opposite sex? You
Yeah.
mean dates? Oh, okay, all right.
And so in that sense, you like the AGI, make it so AGI goes well goal is not so much attractive to girls.
Okay.
And so the new constraint is you want it so that your goal of rationality is attractive to girls.
Right.
Because, this was talked about in Scott Alexander's recent Christianity post. A large reason why people change religions is because their wives are that religion, or their girlfriend is that religion. And people don't change religions because their husband is that religion. It goes in the other way.
Yeah.
And also, most cults.
I wish Andrew Cutler was here. They had to leave. But yeah, I very much feel like women are the transmitters of culture.
Yeah, and most cults similarly start with women. So if you want to turn this into a cult, you got to start with women.
Jennifer, would you like to be the beginning of a new cult? Our personal Eve?
Oh, well.
Oh wait, sorry. Before you answer that, what was her name? And if you wanted to just say hi, you don't have to.
I'm Garrett. Hello.
Hey, thanks, Garrett. Appreciate it.
I have no desire to be the founding member of any kind of cult.
Talking to the other side of the mic.
But
The blue side? Yeah, talking about
thank
that.
you. I have no desire to be the start of any kind of cult. But it is funny that I have a bunch of notes here about overlapping things about femininity and rationalism, and how it is very boy coded, and the women who are involved in it tend to be more masculine coded, which is fine. How do you I'm gonna just speed run some of my notes here that I was going through. How do you infuse rational culture with new ideas and keep it fresh and alive and not stagnant, while guarding the gates with the weird shrimp thing so that it doesn't get overrun by monoculture? Stephen.
I'm trying to get you to talk closer to the mic with hand signals.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And
But not into the top of the mic, into the front of the mic.
into the front of the mic. Goodness gracious. And as you were here, you said something about post-rats and why people go to things that are more woo because of girls, and that set me off of thinking like, yeah, but do we want more girls here? I was thinking about Vibe Camp and how people complained a lot about how it was an event that was extremely boy heavy. I think it was like 70-30 or something, maybe even 80-20, and people were upset about it, but people knew that it was that before it went. The kinds of people that are there kind of know that. And we could structure a different event that is really appealing to women, that makes a lot more women want to go. It would be a different event. And so all of those things in my mind connected together when you said what you said about a religion and making it appeal to women, or making it somehow about guys looking for dates. And how do you do that? It felt important. It also felt like you're in real danger then of just making a whole different thing that has nothing to do with rationality. But so you can't blow it off, because I think it is important, but you can't make it about that either. It's just there's a lot to balance.
Right. I don't know. I personally kind of think if the men have purpose and drive and their lives are going well, then they're going to find women. Women are just going to be attracted to that and come and transmit the culture to the children afterwards. I don't necessarily think you need to create something specifically to attract them, because then you're doing a different project anyway. And I don't know. We have plenty of people trying to do that project, and I don't think it's gone well for them. No?
I partially agree.
Yeah.
But when I look at this community, which I agree with all your comments about how male it is, and it was back in Columbus too, a lot of these people do not have the opportunity to interact with women that often, right?
Yeah.
So you're right in one sense that being passionate and successful, is going to help you attract a partner. But if you're spending all of your time at Lighthaven, where I don't know what the percentage is exactly, but it's a high percentage of men, you just have far less opportunities to bump into some woman and have her recognize those things about you.
My hack for that is bring everyone out to DNA Lounge on Mondays for Goth Night.
Maybe that's one of the secret ingredients is like have other interests. And I mean that sounded kind of like pejorative, but the fact is like, or what I meant to say is like, Goth Club will attract a wide variety of people, but they all have that one thing in common, right? And so then you can, I mean, if this was a longer conversation on this topic, I would want to zoom out and kind of just talk about the whole like, why is this guy coded, and B, why is everyone trying to find partners at this? Well, I would take so many steps back that I would kind of derail the entire conversation. But if you had a quick thing you were going to say.
Oh, all of society being so very siloed, and I think the whole workplace thing we were talking about earlier is part of it, where you just go to the work hole and then leave it, and your life is not intertwined with the rest of it, is a problem because you don't see nearly as many people.
Culturally, it is very difficult to meet people at work today.
Right. That is also a problem. I would like much more of life to be more open and not having such distinct boundaries, and everything being work and life together.
That's why I try to be friends with all my coworkers, but I'm friendly with all of them. Yeah. And to the point of exchanging phone numbers and almost never talking with them over the phone, but it's like we can be in touch, that sort of thing. I like that opportunity.
Hey there, Ben. You had a comment, it looked like.
The floor is yours, Garrett.
The moment is gone.
Okay, fair.
Can I go back to what could be the common project of the atheist religion?
You have the mic. You can take us wherever you want.
Just, I don't know. You were talking about how difficult it is to find one common project, and I thought it's thinking is the rationalist project.
Yeah.
And before we were talking about the difficulty of reading the sequences and how they're not for everybody, and they're written for rationalists. And I'm like Andrew, when I first started reading them, was like, this is just not written for me. It's written for rationalists. and I was confused at first because I thought, isn't his point to like spread the good word of rationality far and wide? And that is not in fact his point, but that could be the point or part of the point of a rationalist, of religious exercise, is to get people to think better and be less wrong, even when they're not, a sigma above the average intelligence level.
That might have come in too loud, but you said the name of the thing. I wanted to celebrate that somehow.
And so, I started writing. Like, I have always had some scribbled notes about a course I want to teach to children called Self-Defense Against Advertising that has to do with, like, statistics or how to identify misleading journalism. Basic literacy is, like, flailing. And there are, like, all these low-hanging things that have to do with thinking better.
Yes.
That if you're looking for a project that will never end, that you can do at all different levels, that you can have different people kind of like grab onto the thing that is hot for them and divide it into different, attack it from different vectors as a group, but that feels like it goes to the heart. Then that's the best one I've come up with.
Yeah.
I like
that.
Project.
That's really good, especially as the modern world is transitioning entirely to like service work and intellectual work, where like you can't contribute to your community by building a massive cathedral, but you can contribute by making the children smarter.
And I think that, like you said, it's low-hanging fruit, and I think that it is ripe for the picking. I mean, like, what do people who don't believe in homeopathy, astrology, and ancient aliens have in common? Like basic critical thinking skills and enough scientific literacy to be able to understand what homeopathy is alleging to do and be like, that makes no fucking sense, right? And so I think I like that goal, and I think instilling that into kids would be awesome, and put them 15 years ahead of where I was, because I didn't stumble across that till I was a teenager, and having an accessible book like that when I was 6 would have been awesome. So save me some time.
One question I have around this is, how much would that end up changing how people do rationality community building now? Because, like, I don't know, I'm not that impressed with lots of the sort of exercises that people try to do, and I don't think that just reading the sequences is enough. And other than that, like, a lot of the sorts of meetups that people have, they seem to be more oriented around, hey, we all like this thing, let's get together and like the thing together.
Yeah.
I think that's true for, like, a lot of things. They have Star Wars conventions and stuff, right? But we want this to be more productive than a Star Wars convention.
Right. But if the Star Wars convention wanted to do something, then they would have to either make something new or change the Star Wars convention. So they're like, all right, we're going to make Star Wars 10.
Right. I am going to once again happily mention the Guild of the Rose, like, because it's not just it is also things like, here's how to make a decision tree to optimize good decision making, stuff like that. But it's also, I love this example, good fashion. There's a course on that, and I learned a lot from that. I mean, I think I look okay, and I with the clothes I'm wearing, and they're better than the clothes I was wearing before I had that course. And so it fashion, finance.
But do you feel like a passionate desire to reach out to other people and to make the world better in this way? Like,
no, but I imagine that
there's one thing about learning a bag of tips and tricks and getting smarter yourself, and there's another be like, I am united with other people in my community to make the world this way because this is important.
Right.
Like, the world depends on it, or something important depends on it.
Yeah, like I went to a couple of major skeptic conferences back in the early 2010s.
Right.
And that was sort of that goal, but, easier scope.
There was a lot, I remember that passion of like, we are saving the world from the ravages religion has brought to it.
So there was that, but also, like, the skeptic movement, if I'm selling it to somebody who's never heard of it, is consumer protection. Someone's going to try and sell you some nonsense, and way you're equipped to handle it.
I'm maybe in the past I would have sold it that way, but that is the least inspiring way to sell the skeptic movement.
I mean, maybe that exact phrasing doesn't land, but I mean, somebody wants to take your money to talk to your dead relative. Somebody wants to take your money to sell you snake oil. Yeah. All of these things.
Like, you're going to save some money is such not motivating. It's like, okay, great. I can also clip a coupon or change it to Geico. Where on the other hand, like this person is trying to rape your epistemology and make you into a weaker human. Fight against it is different.
But you could clip a coupon. But if you're going to be calling Sylvia Brown on the phone to talk to your dead cousin for $3 a minute or something,
Right.
like
I'm just saying, the emotional tactic you use is completely off. It's a way to not get people interested in the thing.
all right, so I will stop pitching it as consumer protection. I guess because
Huzzah, I win.
Well, because the other pitch is like, what do we have on the table? Like, there's no afterlife, there's no magic. There's
It's a hard sell.
right. So that's why I try to focus like on the positive parts of it, which is like you won't be fucked over as often. But
You'll be a better person.
Maybe I would sell it instead of consumer protection. I might say defense against the dark arts.
Right.
But it's not just dark arts. It's all of bullshit, right?
Mhm.
I mean, like, I think that the thing here is to sell more of the positives than the negatives, and like, in fact, being able to sell people, you will know everything, you will know more than everyone else, and you'll be able to do more things than everyone else can, because you listen to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you will gain magic powers of being able to navigate the world better than anyone else can by like just listening to us and be like, go to the websites that we tell you, like Manifold. Like,
yeah, I think you're right, and I'm gonna keep plugging because Jen has used less wrong twice in the last 2 days, and I love that. By being less wrong about whatever it is, you're going to achieve your goals better, and so that'd be another way to sell. I think both the skepticism framework as a whole, but also rationality is like the instrumental goal of, do you want to make fewer mistakes? It doesn't have to be like hard optimizing like we're talking about with Matt, but it's just like, do you want to burn 8 years doing something that you wish you hadn't done? Well, how about you skip that and don't do it in the first place?
I don't think you should say go to the website though. That is also very uninspiring, and nobody wants to do that. Like Matt was saying earlier, human relationships are the most valuable things in life. Like,
I agree.
I'd be more like, come with me, come hang out with my people and we can help, kind of thing.
yeah.
Just a little worried it feels too much like a cult if you say that.
It does. I winced silently on the inside. Just gonna say that sounds like just what they would say when they're trying to drag you into a church,
All right.
which is why you're trying to erect a rationalist church.
But we track our predictions.
Yeah.
Ben, you helped restart lesswrong.com. What was your emotional motivation for doing that?
Oh, I really liked Less Wrong. It was great.
Yeah.
I read it when I was like 14 through 18.
Nice.
Or 14 through 16. So yeah, I just loved it when people would write comments and then they would show that certain positions are wrong, and then other people would change their minds. So that would happen a lot.
Also, turn the mic so you're talking to the front of it. Yeah, where the blue is.
That way?
Yes, the other way around.
This way.
Yes.
Excellent.
Because the pickups are in the front rather than on the top.
Noted.
Yeah, cool.
I'm sad I came late to this discussion. Yeah.
We
I
can
was
hang
cu-
out for as long as you want. Plus, it's all recorded. So
Excellent. So I was curious, and probably you already mentioned it, so just the précis version. You're interested in having atheist religion or a rationalist?
Yeah.
I'm curious what the motivation exactly is for it. I think sometimes people want things to be very, very big, and they're like, everyone in the world will like my thing.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of sometimes like, I'd like 10,000 people to like really care about truth very much and have high standards.
I don't even want a number of people to like my thing. I want the people who are already in the thing and think like me and I feel a kinship towards to have this thing they want where they feel purpose and meaning. And I don't think we have that for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I think you actually might, because you're working on something important. You're one of the guys keeping lesswrong.com alive, which is pretty fucking awesome. Like our world partly revolves around that website.
Yeah. I think
Do you feel more purpose and meaningfulness in life?
I think I get I think I feel a lot of meaning when I'm able to live out the virtues I care about.
Okay.
Truth and honesty and justice and curiosity and so forth.
Yeah.
I enjoy when I kind of enjoy writing comments on Less Wrong quite a lot. Or I think there's something kind of pro-social about you recall that meme, the XKCD, oh no, someone's wrong on the internet. And it kind of has this sense of like, you maybe shouldn't be doing that. You should be maybe getting to sleep. I think it was maybe there's a few people who pointed out. I think Michael Vass is one of them. Of like, it is really good to point out when arguments are false and improve the state of arguments in the world.
Yeah.
And I think Less Wrong is a little kind of small oasis of people having pretty high standards for arguments and showing up. And if they don't like your position, the thing they do is argue against it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like I'm getting a lot of meaning when I get to show up and everyone's like, yep, this position is great. Let's all act on this. Let's reshape the world about this. And I, in my bedroom at 11 p.m., I'm like, it's false. And I can explain this. And then I do quite well. And I don't insult anyone unnecessarily. And I don't like try and use any tools of like, well, actually, didn't you know a lot of high status people agree with me? I didn't say that. I showed how the position was false.
Yeah.
And then I got a bunch of agree votes and some upvotes and some reacts. And there's a comment thread. And then the future posts on that subject are different because of my comment. That's one thing that gives me, that I feel a lot of meaning around. But that was one thing.
That's awesome.
I love it. And I think there's implicit in what you were talking about, or I can't find the right turn of phrase. Part of what was subtextual in what you were saying is we have a culture of celebrating changing your mind, where like largely society doesn't. If you change your mind, like, you were dumb or something like that, and that is so the wrong way to go about doing it. And I think it's something that I take for granted at this point that, a major update where I've changed my mind heavily on something and my friends laud that rather than mock it, is something that I forget that's not universal. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's fun to reward things that people normally punish. Like sometimes a friend will be like, I've quit my job. And I'll be like, high five, man, good for you. That was probably a difficult decision, and it was probably a good decision. I think similarly when someone's like, I've changed my mind, I don't believe something that I used to believe that was a big part of my life. I'm like, wow, excellent, fantastic. And like normally it's like a sad thing or something.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I agree. It's great to congratulate people on doing difficult things that bring them more in aligned with who they are and how reality works.
Yeah, it's just one of the subtle norms that I think I take for granted, and you just reminded me of it. I wanted to call it to attention because I might not be the only one who kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
Well, not like, again, I never forgot about it. I just forget to keep it articulated in my head. So.
Yeah.
You're one of the few people who lives here permanently.
Sure. Yeah.
What is that like compared to living
In the
I
real
want to
world.
call it the real world, yeah.
The real world.
Like, is it feels like this place must feel more meaningful because your community is here, but I don't know, maybe I am projecting.
I just on the distinction with the real world. There's some meme, I think Scott Alexander shared it in his in favor of niceness, community, and civilization essay of like, people having a little small garden and there's like a world around it that's kind of chaotic and everything's fighting.
Yeah.
And then they just gradually increase the size of the walls of the garden until later on, finally, it's mostly garden with a little wall keeping in a bunch of, fighting and demons and so forth. Anyway, this feels like reality to me, and, we're just gradually increasing the size of it. Anyway, sorry, your question was, what does it feel like to live here?
Yeah.
What does it feel like to live here? I mean, a thing that this place has a lot of very different cultures that come and pass through. I mean, they're definitely more on the intellectual side and more on the like, let's have an argument about truth side. But definitely like we had the progress studies people here like a few weeks ago, and that was a different vibe from when we had the manifest people here, or when we have like a rationality workshop. But yeah, I don't know. There's something. There's something very calming about just a lot of people I really intellectually respect who I've read like essays and books from, just casually being around from time to time, and I get to walk up to them and that's the primary topic of conversation or something. It's just like, yes, and you wrote this idea that seemed wrong to me. Could we talk about it? And that's like the opening conversational gambit kind of most of the time.
Cool.
That was one of the first conversations that happened when I got here last night. Was somebody came up and had it was that sort of thing, like, hey, I feel like you were confused about this. It was within 10 minutes of me entering the main hall here. It was great.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, we have the sequences reading meetups, and I really like that there's people I would meet in other contexts, and we'd be like, great, and what's your job? Wonderful. And what country do you live in? What city do you live in? And whereas there's people here, I just have a rhythm where they come up to me and they go, so here's a mistake I made recently, and here's how it fits into my rationality model of myself and the people around me, and here's what I'm going to do differently. And that's all they want to talk about, and they know that we're going to have a great interaction that way or whatever. So I like that. I mean, the other part is I I'm kind of on the dock for like any venue issues or event problems. So every time I walk out, people are like, Ben, where can I find this? And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. I was just getting some milk. That's like a reliable experience. So that's a thing. I mean, that's why I live here, is to solve problems. But anyway, that's
At the very beginning, we were talking about work-life balance, and Inuyasha was loving the idea of, group houses that all are working on the same goal. And I pushed back a bit that I like being able to leave my job and go home. And granted, I work at home, but I can close that laptop, right?
Right.
But this,
No, I don't have
your
some
work
other
is your home.
I don't have some other space where I go, finally, and then if anyone says something that's false, I insult them.
No, I just meant that, like, you're constantly, since you're here and you're the Ben of Lighthaven, like you said, you're just trying to like get a midnight snack, and someone's like, hey, can you help me with a thing here? And I guess it's my job, yeah. So,
and just to be clear, Ronnie Fernandez is primarily doing that now. I'm very grateful that there's someone, because we kept passing around running the venue like a hot potato for like a year or whatever until we hired him. So I'm very grateful that Ronnie's doing that now. And he's doing a good job. Yeah. Sorry, what was the last point you just made?
Oh, you're the wrong person to ask, or I'm the wrong person to ask that.
I have a follow-up question.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
You seemed a little hesitant about the idea of a rationalist religion thing. Are you uncomfortable with that sort of phrasing?
I
Or even
I
the
feel
idea?
somewhat more. I think I'm very much against people believing false things and having pressures
Yeah.
to believe false things.
Yeah. That's one of the hard parts. It would have to be one without false things.
You're right. I then like a bunch of traditions and such that the religions have picked up. I've been using the Sabbath that the Jewish folks and tons of religions have it, but especially the Jewish version of it, a bunch, and found that very helpful over the past bunch of years.
Do you keep a day that you don't do any work?
Not as reliably as my Orthodox Jewish friends, but for a bunch of years I have. Especially if someone runs, they're like, come over to my house and it'll be a Sabbath on Saturday or something like that, I will take it often. I will often do that, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no.
How do you feel about... Well, go ahead if you had that.
Nah, go for it.
How do you feel about people sometimes referring to Lighthaven as rationalist Mecca?
I ignore it.
All right.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I ignore most things.
Okay. They can be as wrong as they want.
There are many things that people do that they call thinking, and that are sometimes connected to reality, but most thinking is, a different thing. Eliezer is like, you can do blop or blue or rah. Not every thought is like, oh, I wonder what, I don't know, I wonder how this is connected to reality. It's not always connected to reality.
Okay.
I kind of, Scott Alexander's essay, Ruling Thinkers In, Not Out?
It's been a long time since I read it.
He's like, occasionally a thinker has a really important idea and it's correct. And then I'm like, I'm going to listen to all this guy's ideas, because most people have a lot of ideas and they're never correct.
Okay.
And so I rule thoughts in often more than I assume that someone is like really on track with some important aspect of reality. Anyway.
Okay. Cool. What is... I heard there was something new coming up for Less Wrong soon?
Oh, well, it'll be probably agreed on tomorrow, but just the current project we're working on at the minute is... do other folks here, have you heard of Orbital?
Mm-hmm. That was the like shoot off thing for a little bit, right? Or like the relaunch.
It was a Yudkowsky project.
Yeah.
It wasn't a shoot off as much as a whole separate thing, but his version of. I don't quite know how to summarize it. There's many like 100-page doc going around where he explains his philosophy, but it's his vision of what a wiki. I think Wikipedia is for like facts and proven knowledge. And then there's something more in the domain of, could you have a Wikipedia for things that are not proven, or for like things that are mapped out by like strong inferential steps rather than like a fact that we can all have consensus on.
I like it. That's awesome.
And he has a bunch of visions for how that works and so forth. Anyway, we're not building that. Some people worked on that for a few years and then stopped and so forth. But in 2017, that project kind of died, but he had spent like 6 months a year like writing out building a whole wiki of his ideas and so forth. Anyway, in like 6 months, due to the tech of that site, the site's going to go down, and no one's really around to fix it. So we're currently working on importing the content into Less Wrong Wiki so it can live on. And maybe we'll see how that goes.
Cool.
Anyway, that was just what we're working on this month.
Nice. I was bummed when it sounded like that was going to disappear forever. So I'm glad that it's being transported or transplanted.
So we've got a vision for that, or of what we want to do there, which does not look like we give him the project he's always wanted. It looks like we do a bunch of hacky things to make sure all of his weird features fit onto Less Wrong. We're going to present him with that tomorrow, and we'll see exactly which sort of version of like existential dread it brings out in him, and whether he wants to go ahead. But probably he'll go ahead.
When you say present it, is there like a call at noon where here's the pitch? Huh.
We'll call it one to confirm it. I think we probably is going to go ahead, but some details to be figured out.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. There's other stuff we're working on as well.
I've been talking a lot about how much I like Eternal September and Lighthaven campus in general. And you've been living here for a little bit too, right? Oh, no? Okay.
You've been around for like years now.
Yeah. I was living here when it was being built.
Damn.
Were you part of the Mats cohort? Yeah. Sorry, we should...
Oh. Yeah, I was.
Yeah, you were part of the first Mats cohort? Second Mats.
Yeah, number 2.
Okay, because I recall the kind of Lightcone philosophy is to, be working on a massive project and then just agree with a consumer, like, at this point we will deliver it to you. And so I think the day before you guys arrived, we were still pouring concrete in certain places and getting the beds into the rooms and fitting the light fixtures. I remember I have a video, I think the night before you guys arrived, that there was some horrible rocky thing that had broken, so I had the guys drill it out, and then there was kind of a hole in the ground, so we poured some cement, and then we had a flamethrower trying to dry it so you guys would be able to walk on it the day you arrived. That was the next day. So yeah, you guys were the first folks to come and show us and report all the issues. Like, it would be great if the water was hot, or the light fixture. It would be great if my room was not just max brightness or off all the time, because we had dimmers in most of them. But yeah. How was that experience being here? Were you staying at the time?
I was staying on site. Yeah.
Neat. How was that?
I loved it. I don't think everyone loved that. I think some people were annoyed that they didn't have real rooms to stay in, and occasionally people would knock down their walls, and then you'd have to move somewhere else, and then you had to wake up at 7 a.m. because everything got very noisy. But I loved it. That was great. If you have any other construction zones which you need people to sleep in.
Noted. I hope to say that we gave the Mats program a discount that time around. I will point out that they have returned 4 more times since, so I think that they're happy with the level of service.
And coming back again this January, right?
Oh yeah. They're coming back January and probably again twice a year.
We did an episode on Mats a while ago, which we should link, but it's a great program for people who want to work in AI risk.
Yeah, it's not bad.
What?
I don't remember that episode.
Oh, it was a while ago. It was back first or second. It was, I think, around the time of the first Mats program.
I actually don't remember it either.
Okay.
And I'm assuming I was there. This is not ringing a bell.
I'm going back and putting up some of our older episodes. Well, I'm putting up all our episodes now on YouTube every 4 days, hopefully, when I get around to it, which is most of the time. I put up another episode from our backlog. And yeah, there's some that I'm like, we talked to Andreas Gomez about the Quality Research Institute? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, you must see so many of these you can't remember.
Yeah.
Well, it's been over so long too. I mean, this will be episode 225, which is still a lot to keep track of. But every other week, sometimes skipping Christmas week or something like that. So, 25 episodes a year probably on average. Yeah. So I mean, wait, yeah,
we've been going like 9 years now.
That means we're pushing 8 or 9. Yeah. So it's been a long time. Oh, really quick before I forgot, I think a couple times Eternal September has been mentioned, but never explained.
Oh, no, I think I explained it at the very top, where it was the thing where people could come, stay here, co-work with other people, and put on conferences and workshops, things like that.
Oh, is that not what you guys do here all the time?
No. Mostly we sell out to clients who book the venue for a specific conference, the whole space. But Eternal September is anyone can just show up on the website, Lighthaven campus. I can't remember actually. I've forgotten the name of our own website. Anyway, /Eternal Camp. If you search Lighthaven, you'll get it. /Eternal September, and you can buy access day passes, and you can buy rooms just on the website. Yeah. Whereas
awesome.
Normally, the Mats program will book it out, and no one can book a room because they've filled it, or a conference will come and they'll sell their own tickets or whatever. But this is through us.
Gotcha.
We're still trying out tons of stuff. We're still figuring out exactly what we're doing with the space. we signed the deal on this space the day before FTX exploded. So some of our plans changed a lot. But yeah, I'm still kind of curious. And again, let me know if we're repeating stuff. But what was the? It sounded like your motivation for was it a rationalist or an atheist religion?
Rationalist religion, specifically.
Rationalist religion
Yeah.
was that people were searching for meaning. It was good for people to have meaning and purpose in their life, and all the other options required you to believe false things. And you were like, I would like another option.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that really got to me, and I think I've mentioned this somewhere before, is that we started losing people to the Mormons and to the trad Catholics. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. We should not be losing rationalists to these organizations. What can we do about this?
Right.
And then also there's like certain levels of social support which we could really use to have among our members. And and right now it's very informal. Like if you know someone, they'll reach out to you if you have mentors or friends. But like there's nothing really formal. And I don't think you need something formal, but more than we have right now. People like our community tends to attract people who have a bit more problems relating to society in general, and we could stand to have some people who are more experienced than that can help people when they're having a hard time and being like, hey, maybe don't do this thing.
I'm not just saying this because I'm being paid to say it, but the Guild of the Rose helps with that sort of thing. It's worth saying and bears repeating. If what you just said resonates with you, if you listener, if what Enosh just said resonates, check out guildoftherose.org and look around, and it has that community aspect to it. And
my one thing that keeps me from being all in on Guild of the Rose is that it doesn't have a physical presence.
It's true, but I mean that's going to be the hardest part. And
right.
So
that's a very hard part.
Maybe they'll do a thing here at Lighthaven at some point or something like that, but even that would be temporary. To get a project like Lighthaven off the ground for it is a very serious and expensive undertaking that they're a not that huge organization yet with 4-ish years of
they
history.
do great things.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for something slightly different than what they're doing. But you were saying
yeah. I mean, I resonate. It is sad to see people. I'm just kind of confused when someone's like, I've decided to go to the group that believes false things.
No, I mean, that's one of the hard things. You don't want to believe false things, but a lot of people, and this includes me for the most part, don't feel like there's any purpose in life and not a lot of meaning to it. And that seems to lead to a lot of dysfunction. And as we were talking, you were an evangelical Christian. I was an evangelical Christian before, and we had a purpose. We had a thing that was the most important thing. And I don't think that rationalists really have that. There's enough diversity of thought, which in general is great, but there's no single unifying thing that we can all say, like, this is a thing that we're working on because it's really important.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know why that's changed. Or, I mean, I guess maybe some people have been living for a while without meaning. And I don't know, by a while I mean some number of decades.
Mm-hmm.
I have some sense that people are like really into cutting down people who have meaning kind of in public or something. And I think in some ways that are kind of epistemically helpful. Like Professor Dawkins going around being like, all your sentences are false and I'm not buying any of them.
Right.
Is like helpful.
Yeah.
But I sometimes think about the sort of rationalist vice of like pedanticism or being pedantic.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can be really good to point out if something is not literally true. It's very valuable. Or if the words don't quite catch up. But sometimes you speak figuratively, or sometimes you're like, it's very hard to get anywhere if you can like always hit the button of like, I need you to hold this to an even higher standard. There are certain people who show up on Less Wrong who are like, I'm just going to require everyone to explain something to me massive as though I'm maximally like stupid and don't understand anything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like kind of prevents like conversation from happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious if anyone has a sense of, for other people's senses of why it's difficult to get meaningful or purposeful things off the ground at the minute. I don't know, I don't know. When you talk to other people about like things that give you a lot of meaning and purpose, like, does something go wrong? Does something not work?
I can't find anyone that really has that.
I have that.
You have that?
yeah, my life feels very, very meaningful. I'm working on AI alignment, and things are going well. I'm working on projects that I think are important in ways that I think are good. So
That is the thing I hear most often among rationalists, is that working on AI alignment, working to, save humanity or get us to the good ending, that's not a thing that everybody can necessarily work on, though.
yeah, I think that I would probably have a meaningful life if I wasn't doing this. Maybe it's just my particular psychology, but like doing things and learning about things are just very meaningful. Like talking to people and having friends, also very meaningful.
Yeah.
I think that I get a lot of value over having great friends.
Yeah.
I don't really understand. I guess I understand a little bit the meaning crisis that people claim is going on, but I don't entirely understand it. I understand the way that people want some kind of metaphysics to be true. That seems like a temptation that I have, but mostly that's fixed by being like, oh, you want metaphysics? How about some math? There you go.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a less wrong post that came out in the last year or so that really impacted me. It was by Anna Salomon. It's called Believing In.
Yeah.
Oh, you've read this one?
I did. Yeah, I liked
Nice.
it.
And she's like, all right, we have a standard kind of rationalist interpretation of beliefs, and these are propositions about the world, or they map onto world states ideally, and your evidence for and evidence against. And she was like, I'm going to try and look through what people seem to be doing when they say, I really believe in this project, or I believe in you, or I really believe in myself, or I believe in justice or something more abstract. I'm not going to quite remember exactly all the details she goes into, but what do I want to say about it? I have a sense that I don't know. I think I'm going to go into my own thinking about it because I can't quite do a good faith of justice to the post. But I think candor and honesty are something I really believe in. Sometimes I will go to a party, and I'm like, I have very little ability to predict what will happen tonight at this party. I don't know the people I'm going to meet. I don't know what sort of characters they are. I don't know how late it's going to go. I don't know if there'll be alcohol. I don't know where the conversation's going to go. And no amount of manifold markets are going to predict the direction of those conversations. There's no future version of it where I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about exactly these topics. These will be the experiences. These will be it's going to be kind of chaos. I can't really predict. There's some things in the world I can predict somewhat, but there's too much detail or whatever. But I do believe that being honest and candid will go well.
Yeah.
And now what do I mean by that? Again, it may get me in a fight. I may just directly say something to someone. Someone, I don't know. Yeah, there are many different things I've said that could be insulting or they could be upsetting to someone or so forth. I also think it could get me a really good friend where we're very fast friends and really tight on things. And it also earns me a certain level of trust because people are well, I know he says what he thinks. There's a way in which I'm I think this is a good thing to live out.
Yeah.
And I think that this broadly moves towards good outcomes. But I can never really trace the exact line. Sometimes in retrospect I can, but I can't forwards to it. I have some sense that there's something meaningful about it where I'm this is something I think is worth investing in. I think if I spend my time doing this, good things will come about.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I think we're using the word meaningful in slightly different ways right now.
I was just to briefly finish. I was going to say I'm not sure everyone has things that they really believe in. I don't know if they believe in themselves. I don't know if they believe in any projects. I don't know if they believe in any virtues or values.
Okay.
They might, but I think if I didn't, I would be more. My world would be very dry and small and colorless.
Yeah.
And those people might have a meaning crisis.
I think the main thing, I don't know, this is just something I've been exploring the last couple of weeks, but I think one of the major things that makes people feel meaningless is if they feel maximally replaceable. And I think that's a thing that modern society actually we want. We need people to be replaceable because any institution that's going to last for a while is going to have people come and go. and but when you get the feeling that like it doesn't matter if I was at this party or not, it doesn't matter if I did this thing or not because someone else would have done it if I wasn't there, that really makes your life feel meaningless. And it almost seems to occur to me that like now that I'm saying it, that some sorts of dysfunction could even be bids for attention. Like I am acting up right now because I want to see if I am important enough in people's lives that they will work hard to keep me there, as opposed to just ejecting me when I become a problem. And sometimes people get ejected. But the idea that you are special and needed no matter what is, I think, one of the ideas that religions do provide to people, that they're like, we need you for this ritual to work. We need you for this church service to go successfully. We need you to help spread the word of God or whatever. And I think one of the things rationalists do is, rationalist culture believes the opposite of that. That like everybody is important in some way, but nobody is uniquely important. That whatever one man can do, another man can do. And that's a strength of humanity, and that's important. But it also leaves you feeling like, what am I really adding to this if someone else could take my spot?
I notice when I imagine like looking at the world through those lens, and asking my brain, all right, what sort of meaning would you get in that world? The sort of meaning my brain returns is, well, like nobody else can have fun in your stead. They can't eat ice cream for you. They can't play video games for you. You could still have fun in that world. They can't have relationships for you. So I think that more generally, there's maybe a trick to having meaning, which is like you may want some kinds of meaning, and maybe those kinds of meaning are good, but if those sorts of meaning end up being incoherent, you shouldn't waste your time thinking about how great it would be if you only had those sorts of meaning. If only 2 + 2 = 3 and not 4, then I would have meaning.
Right.
You should just be like, yeah, I mean, it would be nice if like 2 + 2 = 3, then maybe we could make more interesting cakes. But you should focus on the sorts of meaning that actually exist.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you said there, because that you put it better than I could. The beginning part was the thing I was trying to think of in real time. Was like, you know, I feel like my life is meaningful. The job I'm starting on Monday might be the kind that might make the world a better place. You know, my jobs I've had in the past are pretty low stakes. And I feel like it'd be nice if like my work felt meaningful, but it doesn't. That's never been where I've drawn my meaning. So like, I guess that'd be cool if like, oh yeah, the thing I do for a living also added to that. But yeah, fun is meaningful in itself to me, and I think that's the kind of framing that, and not just fun, but that's an example of something. And it's like
Why?
Like, this is a hard question for me to answer, and I'm trying to work on something that's more useful than me just trying to like gesture at like, you know, I'm totally capable of seeing like the meaningless mindset, you know, especially in like depressive episodes or periods, but like the part of what helps keep that at bay really is like just being there's a lot of gratitude in my life. You know, for the people I know, the opportunities that I have, the life I get to live, and at the bottom of all of that, the fact that I get to be alive at all when not everyone gets to, or if you know, from another framing, like Richard Dawkins put it in, I think, Unweaving the Rainbow, like the supermajority of people that could exist never will. And I get to spend time under the sun. Like that in itself is the most, you know, I'm trying to find a non-religious word like blessed or you know, on or miraculous, but when I can feel gratitude for that sort of thing, it doesn't matter that like I'm not gonna have monuments built to me like Alexander the Great, you know.
You don't necessarily need monuments. Like our friend Wesley Fenza says that if you want meaning, you should just have a kid, because they're huge meaning machines. And like I get his point. Once you have a child, you realize you are irreplaceable to this child. Like there's no one that can do the things that you are doing for that kid, and that's a big deal.
But like you were saying, no one can have fun for you.
Yeah, but
You know,
fun
and-
is so what? Like, I do like fun, definitely. I
If you
think
don't like fun,
hedonism-
then we're using the word differently.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Like, I think hedonism is important. I have a strong, what I call it is like creating beautiful experiences and setting them in the timeline. But that's basically my version of hedonism, right? And I like those a lot. But that's not quite enough. That's 50% of a well-lived life, and you need that 50%, but you also need the other 50%.
I want Ben to jump in, but I have just because that's the whole point of doing this in a group. But I have one quick thing. Is just that the other thing that I would add to that yeah, it's so fun. You can leave that aside, but doing kindnesses for people
Yeah.
is the kind of thing that if that's not meaningful, then I think we need to taboo meaningful and find a different word because
No, it is.
that-
Just very few. There's very few opportunities to do kindnesses for
oh,
people.
that's not true.
No?
You can find 100 a day.
Okay.
I mean, like 100 might be stretching, but a dozen.
That's
You know,
true.
I've held
You
the-
were at Jen's house just a few days ago, and you screwed two things tighter with a screwdriver while you were there.
I
You're
saw
like,
a
oh, this
problem that
thing's
could need
loose. Let me
fixing.
help make it better.
I tried to hold the door open for people who knew better or who knew their way around and didn't need it both times, but just like they were carrying big things and like just little things that you can do to make people's lives a little easier that day, and that percolates through all the rest of time.
Yeah.
And so those sorts of things, that's the kind of thing I can go to bed feeling good about.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ben, sorry.
It's not quite present with me, but I realize I do sometimes feel kind of meaningless and purposeless. I think I sometimes get it when I am reading a great story and the main character's on a big quest to like try and save the world and uncover like the secrets of the universe, and there's like a character that's like slightly inconvenienced by the whole thing and like just shows up briefly to be like, this is really difficult and the problem and everything you're doing is kind of messing up my life, and he goes sorry and then he moves on. And I'm like, most people's lives are like this other character, and maybe my life is one of these other characters. They're just like basically not really saving the day. They're not really helping. They're not really, their life doesn't matter at all to the course of the plot, whether everyone like lives or dies. Sometimes I worry that I live already past the point where I could have had any influence on like the way the world's going to go.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, everything that I sum to is just like in one country, there was a country called England, and some people did something there once. And that's like it. And Ben was one of the millions or, tens of millions of people. And then I feel very kind of, what's the point of doing anything?
I feel you. I do. And I think this ties back to what Garrett was saying. It would be nice if 2 + 2 = 3. Luckily, I think I kind of had that. Like, I still have that once in a while. It's not like I'm over it, but I had it really hard kind of all at once in my early 20s. And kind of just eventually it was kind of when I was first getting into rationality and reading about all of this. I was super energetic and inspired by it. I'm like, how can I help contribute to this project? And then I was like, fuck, they're all geniuses. I can't really help. And so then I was like, well...
Okay, so this is exactly my thing. Like, people like Ben are helping to run lesswrong.com, right?
And if he's not finding meaning
Well,
in that,
no,
then where is there hope for the rest of us?
He's doing something really important for at least our community, if not the greater world. But even our community is a really big deal. And helping with like Lighthaven, and the problem with the greater populace is that like not everyone can do that. And how does everyone else contribute? How does the mom raising 3 kids that can bake cookies for the church sale? She can do that in the church. What can she do in the rationalist community?
We like cookies.
Yeah, like right. What could I, as an accountant, when I was just doing accounting, do for the rationalist community?
So that
Not
was
much
where I
of
was
anything.
at when I was first reading these. I was working part time at a liquor store,
Right.
reading them because there was never anyone in there. It was a stupid job just to give me something to do during the summer, and I'm reading Less Wrong posts on my phone. It was at the most boring and useless part of my life that I was getting the most excitement out of this sort of thing, right? So I'm like, I guess that this is where I was tying back to the 2 + 2 = 3 thing. It was be like, it sure be great if I could be the next, Scott Alexander or Yudkowsky or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't need to be. And if I need that to find meaning, then I can't find meaning. And so like I need to be
Well-
able to find happiness and meaning.
Or maybe someone can create an institution that can bring these people together and actually end up somehow making a meaningful contribution to the community.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's sort of the point that I wanted to get to. I think you know, being part of a religious community, part of a church, has, I mean, it's long ago enough. It's hard to even express, you know, why it feels meaningful. But I think it gives you simultaneously this grand story that you're a part of and you're important to. But it also gives you, and that's what gets people to maybe like show up every Sunday, right? But it also creates a community for this sort of mundane meaningfulness, right? And it creates a lot of those opportunities to be helpful to other people, right? It's not, oh, I read the sequences, how do I contribute to this, right? It's, I go every weekend and I see a bunch of people and I get to know them, and there's like 1,000 things that I could volunteer for, right? Like if I don't know what to do, here's 10 things on the shelf that I can pull, right? And those are all opportunities that have been structured to provide that sort of mundane meaningfulness of I'm being helpful, I'm interacting with people, right?
Yeah. Well, I know you guys will not like this and will not accept this idea, but when I first
Go for it.
when I first moved here, I would occasionally try to like, I mean, I still do try to put away my own dishes often, but can't always do that because sometimes the dishwasher is full or whatever. But I quickly realized staff takes care of everything, and that's awesome. It frees up so much time to do other things, to chat with people, to work on projects, but also like if people could show up in the community and be like, oh, look, the dishes need to be done or the floors need to be swept or something, that on the one hand, that feels really good. That feels like you are contributing, doing things. On the other hand, then people are like, oh, look, they're using their cult members as free labor as opposed to paying staff. So
No, I mean, I buy that it's nice to do things. It's nice to contribute and do things together. We're run by an organization, and also we definitely have specialization of labor where we're not going to be doing this every day. We're going to hire some people to get the thing done. Yeah. But I know I buy that. I was going to reply to a different thing, but
Yes.
did you finish your point?
No, that was it. It's hard for people just to show up and help in little ways. And I mean, that's also because in a church you know exactly what needs to be done, whereas here it's like, where do these dishes go? I'm not sure. Like, how could I help with that?
Yeah.
It can be harder to find where to put things.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to take out the trash, which I did, gosh, what was it? It was over the weekend when a thing was going and the staff wasn't here. I was like, I would love to take out this trash and take it somewhere, but I'm not sure where to take it.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate the intention. I think so. I wanted to push back on the I always feel meaning. It's great. I wanted to be I sometimes feel meaningless. Now I want to push back on the rationalist sort of vibe is or sensibility is that we're mostly meaningless. I think I have two slight pushbacks. One of them is I don't feel like that. I think there's a great Eliezer Yudkowsky quote that I often reflect on. It's from one of the author's notes of HPMR. I won't get it exactly right, but it's something like, if I've learned one thing in life, it's that the people who get the job done are not those who are most responsible for the job getting done, not those who are most qualified for the job getting done, but those who show up.
Yeah.
I have often been the guy who showed up. Who's going to come? Oh, no, it's Ben. Well, I guess it's good that the thing gets done anyway.
No one's ever said, oh, no, it's Ben.
Well, right. Fair enough. That's nice of you to say. But yeah, I think my take on the world is indeed there's a ton of things that nobody is doing ever. And you can go and find, if you build your own model of the world and you think about it and you get your own perspective, you can start to notice a lot of balls getting dropped. The civilization isn't being run perfectly. There's a lot of shit going down badly. So I think from one perspective, I do have a perspective where I kind of feel sometimes I feel you must have read Worm.
I read several arcs in, but there was just too much fighting versus character development that I got bored. There's too much fighting.
All right. Okay.
I think he fell off around.
Read Worm?
I did.
You've read Worm. You've read Worm.
He fell off around the Leviathan fight. So
that's early.
well, it's a long way in, but it's a long book.
The last fight I remember reading was with Clock Blocker, where she got bombed to hell but survived it.
Nice.
Okay, it's hard to remember the specifics. He's in a lot of fights, but anyway,
it was one of the very early fights with him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something from later on in the book. I don't think it's a massive spoiler. You can redact this section if you disagree.
It's
but
been
I
out for
think
like
it's
10 years.
There's a godlike character.
Scion.
Scion. And it turns out he has this relationship with this random homeless dude.
Yeah.
Who just happened to be around when Scion arrived. And Sion's just standing there, this strange god who's arrived on Earth or whatever. And the homeless guy just is kind of angry at him because he has like godlike powers and anything he wants. And the homeless guy is like under a bridge, alone, dirty. And he yells at him. And he finally kind of goes, like, you're just so here, sad and lonely, doing nothing. If you want something to do, go out and help people. And then Sion goes around the world, helping stuff.
He's like, I just want to paint the picture a little bit for people who haven't read this. He's like a mute Dr. Manhattan who's gold instead of blue. And I remember the chapter, it's an interlude way late in the book called The Most Important Man in the World.
Right.
Yeah.
The most important man in the world.
The one that Sion, like, because he doesn't respond to anyone when he shows up to, topple or to, correct a train that's going off course or fight a giant monster. He just ignores everything and just does it and goes into the next thing. He doesn't talk to the guy, but he sits and listens. And no one believes that, this guy who's a homeless beggar asking for change is the guy that can sometimes tell Sion what to do. So please, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help kind of
I appreciate
set the stage.
You did it better than I did. This guy is in a position where he has a very large influence over the world, but it's not legible. No one is like, yes, and you have the position of advisor to Sion. We've hired you. You get a good salary. You get to hang out with high status people. None of these things happen. No one believes him. He is in this situation. I think I have a model of the world where this sort of situation happens more often than just that one time. Not with that literal level of power disparity, but where something very important needs to be done, and someone is in a position to do it, and they will not get rewarded for doing this. You will not get a lot of money. You will not get a lot of glory and acclaim, but you are in a position to do it. Anyway, I feel like this from time to time. I have other people who I think are in positions to be like this from time to time. I think the world has a lot of opportunities like this. And you should grab them if you're in them. It's good to grab them. Yeah. Even though your life will just continue and everyone else will be like, and then Elias did that weird thing, and then he continued, or no one even notices that the thing happened. Anyway, so that's one thing I wanted to say, is I think that happens somewhat often.
Yeah.
The other thing is I wanted to come back to saying, like, I kind of try and just hold on to the sort of rationalist virtues that I care about, of like honesty and candor and explaining how the world works, and a bunch of other things, earnestness. Like I said, I kind of believe in these things, even though I can't quite tell you how they'll end up in good outcomes. And I kind of think many people can believe in these things without knowing exactly how it ends in good outcomes.
Yeah.
Many characters might end up in the story in some weird way. Yeah. And it's great when that character in the story they play is the guy who just said the truth all the time and would like cared about what was important. Yeah. And you're like, I'm really glad that the receptionist person during the important crisis said what was true and cared about what was important. Yeah. And they didn't have the right job or anything, but they appeared briefly and they lived out these virtues and the world is better for it. Yeah. And I think people build that together. Like, they just practice these throughout their lives, even though they're not exactly sure. Like you were saying, there's lots of little mundane things that you can do to, I think, live out some of the virtues.
That was the thing we were taught a lot as Jehovah's Witnesses too, to always be your best and, be acting like God would want you to act, because you never know when what you're doing will be a model to somebody to be like, I should be like these people, I should join this church, something like that. It was, it made every little thing seem a lot more important.
So you can still do that though.
You can, and I think like as you pointed out, what you were saying, that was literally that, right? I don't think we emphasize that, but I think we should. Like, maybe the most important man in the world should be a talk at winter solstice in 2025 or something, because this is the sort of thing that really helps regular people. And I'm glad you worded it that way, because I have not heard this expressed before.
Thanks.
Or at least not this well.
Hey, I'll say one more little thing on it, is that the time I feel this most often, am I holding this thing right?
Yes, sir.
Great. I think I feel it when I comment on Less Wrong. There was a great comment by a guy who sometimes annoys me, but it's fine.
His name is Eneasz Brodsky.
His name is John Maxwell. There was a really good comment where he, it's back in like 2017, talked about how comments on the internet that people write get read there's way more people reading and lurking than there are writing comments.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kind of went through a few Fermi estimates and was like, I really think you can have a massively outsized impact on the world by writing comments. And I was reading his comments, and a bunch of people were reading his comments, and like Gwern comments get read by like incredible numbers of people, and lots of random comments like affect how I think about the world from people who I don't really know the usernames of. And so often I'm like, I will like go and comment on a post, or I read the post and I'm like, it does seem like there's an important perspective that the guy kind of just missed, and everyone's kind of not talking about it, and I'm not an expert in the area, but I'm going to write a comment. Or like there's an inferential step here that just doesn't really make sense, and I'm just going to point it out. And I do that, and I suspect that sometimes I do that, it has a very good impact on the world, and people are able to be a bit more sane in that subject, and sometimes that matters, and I don't really know which ones it is. Yeah. So I'm always kind of excited to write a comment where I'm like, oh, it turns out this is not true. Or here's a perspective that's kind of missing. And I think there's a bunch of people who do that. I think Ayla often like adds a perspective to a conversation where it was missing, and it definitely no one else was going to say that during the conversation. Yeah. And like, I don't think she knows which comments of hers impact people the most. She has a hard time often predicting the impact of twitting. Anyway, so I think this a lot when I'm contributing to the public discourse. I'm like, I should hold myself to good standards with every comment. And I don't know really which ones are going to have a lot of impact, but I think I can live it out most of the time. Anyway, I just wanted to add that as like a way that I feel that.
That was really good.
I have a small just way to add on to that. Please. Is that those sorts of, and you're doing it specifically through like a domain where people are going to learn stuff, you know, in the comment section of Less Wrong, right? But those little moments where you don't know what thing you might say or do that might change the course of someone's life, that could change the course of history. Right. I a couple examples. My wife got into her line of work because the person in the dorm across from her happens to be in that line of work and mentioned it. And she's been doing this for 15 years, and she's helped a lot of people. And I got into programming because a friend of mine asked why I wasn't a programmer, and I said I thought it was hard, and he sent me a link to automate the boring stuff, a Python tutorial. And then I quit my job, went to a boot camp, got a job in the industry.
Fantastic.
And I told him about it, and you know, I'd seen him in the interim, but I told him like a year or two later, like expressly, like, I wouldn't have been here if not for you. And he kind of like looked shocked. He's like, well, shit, that's like a horrifying amount of like responsibility. And I told him, I was like, that's just how life happens, you know?
Yeah, a
like,
horrifying amount of responsibility all the time.
But the thing is like, he didn't think that it would change my life. You know, I think he maybe thought it would help, you know, or that I'd be curious and, you know, want to look into it. But, you know, in a very obvious way that changed my life, I make like 3 times as much money as I did back then, right? I was making, you know, penance, you know, little cheap jobs, whatever, non-specialized. And so like I can now own a home and you know, spend a week out at Lighthaven, you know, instead of having to crunch in extra hours, you know, extra shifts. But so you never know what little thing that you're doing might be the positive vibe that hits somebody just on the right day and at the right time and changes their life. And that's also super meaningful, right? And since you don't know what those moments are, you can kind of just try to keep doing that all the time. I didn't mean. I hope I added to what you were saying and didn't distract from it.
No, it was very interesting. But yeah, so I wanted to say those as like 2 ways that I sometimes still feel meaningful, even though sometimes I doubt the meaning of life.
Yeah.
But yeah, still interested in how it landed with you and any other. I don't know. Do you want to push back with some anti-meaning? Be like, nah, Ben, it definitely doesn't work out. And I can try.
No, I mean, the part where it's not legible sometimes makes it harder.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strong benefits of having a community, that people will often build you up and tell you, like, you know, even though nobody saw this, you know, you still did good. Or, you know, I saw that little thing that you did in church a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to come to grips with what happens when the opposite happens legibly. What happens when you go out and do the right thing, everyone is like, that guy sucks, we all hate him. Can you still do all that? Never mind, no one noticed. Everyone dislikes you for it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find the strength to be able to comfortably do that one as well.
I mean, I don't know how to do it within rationality, but in Christianity, God sees it and rewards you. Right? So we have a built-in, like, even if the world hates you for doing the right thing, you still do it.
Yeah.
Sadly, in the real world, he doesn't exist and you die. So you need to find some better justifications.
I mean, I like the justification that doing those things makes you better. And that is very important to me.
That's a great way to put it, and I wish I could have put it that well myself. If
It's not-
no one's around to see it, you did it, and it's the virtuous way to live. You're a better person for having done it.
It's not enough if no one ever sees it, but it helps, and it's important to remember that too, and that I don't do bad things because they do damage me.
I mean, I think it's good to practice. Like, I was chatting with Zach Davis the other day, and he was going on about he's some reason he's got in his head that the thing he's going to do at like 33 or something is like, I guess I'm going to finish my undergrad degree, which is a wild choice. But he's going back and he's trying to fill out like coursework assignments or something, and they're kind of you know the thing where the exam says don't use a calculator, and you're like, what is this, 1970? Of course everyone has a calculator. Why would you ever do that? They say like don't use any guides to like answer the questions, and he's like, well, I am going to use ChatGPT because this one's hard, and also I know everyone else is using guides, which I didn't use, and I carefully tried for a while, but I'm still stuck. And he's kind of going back and forth, and he's like, but do I even think I'm tricking anyone? I'm pretty sure the TAs know that everyone is using guides, and I'm still not, so I am better than them on average, but is it deceiving? And he was going, is this kind of pointless because no one cares? And I was like, I mean, I judge the honesty of the people around me. I judge what they'll do when I can't check, and I'll judge what they do when we're not allowed around each other anymore in like 10 years or in a different environment. So there is something great about living as you mean to live, and acting as you mean to act in future. Even if it like you're just like practicing the principles. Nope, I'm going to figure out how to not deceive anyone in my environment. And I think I can do that here, and I think it's going to take some extra work, but I want to be the sort of person who people trust to not be deceiving anyone. Yeah. And even in that environment, not a single person gives him any credit for it. I will want to work with him more in future. I will want him to be friends with me and like go to battle together. And I imagine other people will as well. Yeah. So I think that's another way it kind of cashes out, is that like you can build stronger allies if you have better principles. Yeah. Even if no one in your current environment seems to notice that you have principles or has thought of having principles. Yeah.
Choosing your environment is also really important. And if you're in an environment that encourages a lot of bad behavior, maybe don't be in that environment.
Definitely.
Yeah, which is another great reason we should create a good environment.
Yeah, I've been trying to get out of the effective altruism environment for a while.
Trying to get out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Distancing myself.
Okay. We've been going for a while, but I want to know why.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. I also have my qualms about the effective altruism environment, but
right.
And if you don't want to be this, I'll be on record. We can cut this.
No, I don't mind.
And by cut, I mean stop, because we're not actually going to cut.
I don't know. I mean, there was only a small point, but definitely there's a bunch of like, I think, pretty naive ethical analyses about how to operate in the world that don't take into account some of the virtues that we discussed, of like candor and forthrightness and so forth. Where they're like, I have on one side of my equation the number of qualities I expect if I say this thing. On the other side, you're trying to quantify the importance of integrity and not deceiving people. I didn't explicitly lie, so it's fine, right? Right. I guess integrity sounds important, but here the qualities slightly outweigh it, so I'm not going to have integrity this time or something. Right. In a way where they're like, can you show me how integrity will get me more qualities in this situation? And I'm like, I really believe in integrity. I can't draw the lines every time. But I do think if we acted in this way, things will be better in a bunch of reasons.
And qualities being quality adjusted life years.
That's right. Yeah. Just whether like lives saved or money moved or something like that. So I think that was a chunk of it. But there was a few other things. Anyhow, that was just an unnecessary small political comment at the end of an enjoyable podcast.
No, that keeps things spicy. No. I think I'm, at least between me and Enosh and maybe the three of you then, or the two of you, I'm the most sympathetic with EA. I do think that I
think I'm sympathetic. I just have enough qualms that I keep a little distance.
And to be clear, I guess I've never been to an EA conference or whatever, but like I think that it's important for, institutions and organizations at a high level to be more utilitarian, right? Like, but I don't think that's how individuals can best operate. If we're looking at just the maximum positive impact of all of our actions, you're going to be miserable pretty fast, right? You can't justify spending an evening playing Fortnite with your friends because you could be spending that time working and donating to the Against Malaria Foundation. And so but I do want like the organizations to exist that are geared that way.
Yeah.
I could ramble about this for a bit, but maybe I'll save it. But I think that strict consequentialism isn't, I think, a way that humans can operate and be happy at the same time, unless somehow you rule McCaskill. But
No, I bet he's a bit deceptive.
maybe it could be. Well, and I guess it's also true that he saves, or he has a bit more money than he technically needs to survive that he spends on coffee, right?
Right.
So like,
yeah, that's virtuous.
yeah, I agree, and so but I think if I was to put this down into like a one sentence that sounds perfectly appropriate for rationalists, Lighthaven kind of line of thinking is that I would want our AI god to be pretty heavily consequentialist oriented, maybe not 100%, but at least geared that way. But that's not how humans can live and be happy. It's certainly not how I can live and be happy. I do things that make me feel good, that I try to make the world a better place, but not in the most maximal way possible.
Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up, anybody have any final things they want to say?
Can we make it a tenet of the rationalist religion that you ought to sign up for cryonics?
We absolutely should. Yeah.
I don't think we should.
Why not? Or some sort of brain preservation?
Like, I think that having like things like that, like, suppose it turns out that actually Alcor, a bunch of fucking schmucks who lie to you. Same with Krennic's Institute. You want your community to be light on its feet and be able to like quickly update to new things like that, and not have ideological commitments about object level statements about the world. You want most of your if you want to make a rationalist community, you probably want most of the sorts of things that people subscribe to be more meta than that. Do
the best you can to preserve the brain after death so that it can maybe be recovered in the future.
Like maybe, but maybe that's not like the right what's it called? Maybe the ways of doing that are too expensive for someone, and they're like I could do a lot of stuff and do the best I can at this thing, but like I don't want to do the best I can at this thing. I want to play Fortnite, because like best you can is a high bar too. You could say
sometimes
some amount of effort.
Sometimes religions ask for some sacrifice.
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea. I do not know quite how to deal with like claims that everyone is supposed to have consensus on, because I really like acknowledging that everyone kind of, there's always people who kind of disagree with stuff.
Yeah.
I like it when someone does a survey and it turns out that like the thing that we all assumed, it's like 33% agree, and then 27% have like a weakened version of it, and then 26% have like a kind of side. It's a similar claim, but it's not the same claim, and then 17% disagree with it. I was like, okay, are we still all working together? I go, yes. I go, okay, we didn't need that one. So anyway, I don't quite know how to relate to like tenets, but yeah.
Like atheism.
He said like atheism and then got that reply in case that didn't come through on the mic.
Oh yeah, he did say like atheism. Anyhow, this is an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna do this. You guys do this a lot. How often? When's the last time you did this?
Never. We did well, not in real life. We did a live episode via Discord 5 years ago.
Yeah, four or five.
Yeah.
It was right near the beginning of COVID, right?
Maybe. I'd have to go back and I think it was our 100th episode.
Didn't we have another one after that though?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, we don't do this very often.
If you do another one, I'll come by. This is really interesting.
Awesome.
Oh, sweet. Cool. Well, maybe we should do it more often then.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. And
Goodbye.
this is on Steven's computer.
Yep. Well, yeah. So I guess we're signing off. Check out guildoftherose.org. I think I sold it, hopefully, during the episode. And no less wrong post sequence this week.
The website is lighthaven.space.
Yes.
That was
perfect.
I looked it up.
All right.
Excellent.
Great.
Cool. And that's going for until January 4th, right?
That's right.
Cool. If people want to come in, there's still some time.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, everybody. I really appreciate you guys coming.